Chapter 56-61. Master Dongfang secretly twitched the corner of his mouth. He coughed lightly and said seriously, "Everyone, I see that everyone has been digging for nearly half an incense's time. Until now, we still haven't found anything, right? If we continue digging like this, we will only waste more and more time." Just now, young Master Emo must have been lucky to dig out a small bag of frigid void sand under the tiles in the front hall. Our time is limited. If everyone continues to waste time here, we won't have enough time to enter the main hall later. Everyone think about it. Usually, good things are mostly in the main hall. What do you think? When everyone heard this, they immediately felt that Master Dongfang's words were reasonable. Zhang Jing nodded and immediately stopped digging. She quickly returned to Arbor's side. Master Dongfang was right. If they wasted more than an hour here, even if they dug out a little bit of frigid void sand, it wouldn't be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. It was better to listen to Master Dongfang's words and hurry to the main hall. He Weiping also calmed down at this time. He nodded and said to the big-bellied man beside him, "Brother Fong, let's go over too. Instead of wasting time here, why don't we hurry to the main hall?" "Yes, yes." The group of people immediately threw away the half-dug floor tiles in their hands and ran over in unison, gathering around Master Dongfang. "Master, we'll listen to you. Master, thank you for reminding us. Otherwise, we would have to do some useless work again." Master Dongfang smiled and nodded at everyone. It's fine. Everyone, then let's set off quickly." The front hall was empty. There was nothing to look at. If Baby Mo hadn't suddenly found frigid void sand hidden under a floor tile, they wouldn't have stopped. They would have already passed by. But speaking of which, that young Master Mo really deserved to be called the person with the best luck. He actually got a god-level refining material just by randomly digging up a tile. It was simply people couldn't be compared to each other. It couldn't be compared. Everyone followed Master Dongfang for a while and stopped in the corridor between the front hall and the middle hall. 3 forks appeared in front of them. Each one looked exactly the same. Everyone stopped and discussed which path to take. Their small eyes frequently looked at Master Dongfang, who was frowning and deep in thought. "In my opinion, we should walk in the middle." No. Doesn't the path in the middle look a little darker than the other two? "I think we should take the left." "Take the right." "I don't think we can take any of these paths. They should all be traps." I remember that in the past, there were only 2 paths leading from the front hall to the middle hall. Why are there 3 paths today? The Western Master and the others have already passed by. I wonder which path they took. As he spoke, a loud noise came from the left fork. Not long after, the Western Master's face was extremely dark as he led over 100 people out of the fork. At the same time, on the right side of the fork, the Master of the South and the Master of the North had also brought their people back. Everyone covered their noses with their sleeves and kept waving the turbid air in front of them. The 800 people from the sanctuary gathered once more, exchanging glances with each other. The Southern Master's enchanting red dress was now stained with black clumps of something unknown. It emitted a thick stench, causing the Master of the North and the others to roll their eyes. "So smelly." Baby Mo pinched his nose and buried his head in his father's arms. Chapter 56-62. Master Dongfang and the others quickly held back their laughter. If they dared to laugh at this moment, they would definitely become the target of public criticism. Look at how tragic the 2 teams were. The Western Master's sleeve was torn by an unknown object, and the bottom of his pants was also torn. The robe on his body was full of holes, as if it had been bitten by a dog. His entire body was in a low pressure of dark clouds. The Southern Master screamed and asked a Water Spirit Master to quickly spray water on her body. With a spray, her translucent red soft robe stuck to her body. Other than revealing her curves, everything else was exposed for everyone to see. She was so angry that she took out a blanket from her inner world to cover her body while screaming angrily, Look, what are you looking at? Haven't you seen your mother before?" Everyone chuckled as their gazes swept over her body a few times. Compared to the other 2 masters, the Northern Master was considered a luckier person. His clothes were slightly messy during the fight, but other than that, he was fine. Everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but envy Master Dongfang and the others who had arrived late. Zhang Jing, He Weiping, and the others were also rejoicing in their hearts. If the child hadn't dug the floor tiles on a whim, they would have been in trouble with him. But it was hard to say. Think about it. The Northern Master and the Southern Master chose the right fork, and the Western Master chose the left. The path in the middle might have been taken by them. Since both the left and right paths were traps, the middle one must be the real one. Just as they were thinking this, they saw the Western Master suddenly shake off the pockmarked robe on his body and throw it to the ground. Let's go. He led his people and walked directly to the middle path without saying anything to the others. Seeing this, the Southern Master wrapped himself in a blanket and said with a haggard face, "Northern Master, let's follow." This guy looked as if he had been abused by something. His entire body was wet. There were many water droplets on his hair, and it was still dripping. Arbor looked at them and felt that these people looked really tragic. He Weiping and the others silently gave themselves a thumbs up in their hearts. See, to them, following the right team was such a wonderful thing. So, don't be in a hurry. Perhaps the best meal would be left for last. Seeing that the hundreds of people had left, the big-bellied man hurriedly turned to Arbor and the others and said, "Madame Amo, young Master Amo, let's follow them." Yes, yes. Don't fall far behind them. When the time comes, all the good stuff will be taken away by them. Yes, yes, yes. Let's hurry up and leave. Let's go. The group of people were all talking at once. Just as they were about to move forward, they realized that Madame Amo was looking at them as if they were idiots. Master Dongfang, Madame Amo, please speak your mind. Baby Amo jumped down from his father's arms. Wait for me. This sentence sounded strangely familiar. Puffed. Young Master Amo, are you going to dig the floor tiles again? The big-bellied man's spirits were lifted. Baby Amo shook his little head and ran to the pillar at the side. He floated up and reached out to press a protruding button, slamming it heavily. Everyone could only hear the sound of Ga, Ga, Ga. He turned his head around in confusion. After a few creaking sounds, a transparent path appeared on the rightmost side of the three forked roads. Chapter 56-63. Master Dongfang, Zhang Jing, and He Weiping. What were they supposed to say? This kind of overwhelming IQ advantage was not something that could be achieved just because they said so. So, the fork in the middle that Master Dongfang and the rest had taken was actually not the right path. Everyone could not help but want to cover their faces with their hands. This was really too strange. Master Dongfang and the rest would probably have to return the way they came in a while. This was such a sad thing. Thinking about it now, they felt that there was a faint sadness among them. One of the people from the sanctuary coughed softly and could not help but ask in a low voice, "Young Master M.O., how did you know that there was a mechanism up there? Didn't you all look?" Baby M.O. looked at them with a puzzled expression. When I walked in, my eyes and ears were on all sides, and I observed everything. Such an obvious mechanism button, and none of you saw it? Baby M.O. looked at everyone in shock. Everyone. Sorry, child. It was uncles and aunties who were blind and held you back. Feng Zhangqing could not help but burst into laughter. The little guy floated up and followed beside his mother, tilting his little head. "Mother, isn't little dumpling very smart?" His mother nodded vigorously, expressing her agreement. Just like mother. Everyone, fine. If they were boasting, then so be it. This mother and daughter pair were constantly boasting about themselves. Actually, they had already gotten used to it as they listened. Arbor lifted his leg and walked towards the transparent path at the side. "Everyone, follow me." Everyone nodded and followed Arbor onto the path. They followed the path forward. The surroundings looked empty, and there was nothing blocking the way. Everyone was able to walk very smoothly. After a while, He Weiping heaved a sigh of relief. They were finally back on the right path. Ever since they entered the Holy Palace, nothing had happened peacefully along the way. Everyone felt that it wasn't easy for them to walk all the way here. One had to know that there were not so many troublesome things in the Holy Palace in the past. After entering the Sacred Palace, Almost everyone had more or less gained something. But this time, from the moment they stepped into the Holy Palace, they had been tricked and tricked and tricked again and again if female cultivator Zhang had not asked for compensation. At this moment, they might not even be able to obtain those heaven-grade medicinal herbs. Thinking about it this way, compared to the miserable Southern and Western masters, they were much luckier. Wait for me for a moment. Baby Imo suddenly spoke, causing everyone to be stunned. Wait again. Everyone silently took out their hammers and all from their inner worlds and automatically followed behind Baby Imo. Young Master Imo Jr., are you digging for something? Young Master Imo, is there something you want to pick along the road? We'll help you. These uncles and aunties were inexplicably enthusiastic. Baby Imo looked at them in confusion and moved his small body slightly. Little Dumpling wants to poop. Everyone was speechless. Feng Zhangqing and his party couldn't hold it in for a moment and burst out laughing wildly. Stoic Qiao expressionlessly handed her son into her husband's arms and waved her hand like a boss. Go ahead. Emolian. Was it because fate was playing tricks on people? Ever since he was young, his son had always been rather aloof towards him. His wife had long since handed over this great undertaking to him to manage. Chapter 56-64. Emolian accepted her fate and carried her son to the side to poop. Everyone stayed where they were and waited for orders, chatting with each other. Baby Imo had been eating, drinking, and sleeping well since he was young, so in less than 2 minutes, Father Imo carried his son back to meet everyone. Baby Imo held something that looked like a small sunflower in his hand and waved it in front of everyone. There are quite a few helianthus seeds at the side that can be used to make seasoning. Aren't you going to pick some, Uncle and Annie? I've already picked a basket full of them. Everyone immediately ran towards the place where he pooped. There was indeed a large field of helianthus seeds nearby. Arbor, his son's luck was a little too heaven-defying. He could pick up a field of helianthus seeds just because he pooped for no reason. What kind of bullshit luck was this? Everyone happily picked more than half of the field, leaving behind a small handful, and then ran back joyfully. Most of the people here were from the eastern region, and only a few were from the western and northern U. At this moment, these western and northern U cultivators couldn't help but want to give themselves a few more thumbs up. Back then, he had really hit the jackpot. That was why he was able to follow such an invincible team. If they had followed their original team, wouldn't they all be unlucky? Thinking of this, these people couldn't help but secretly rejoice in their hearts. At the same time, the Western and Southern Masters teams of several hundred people were being attacked and bombarded by inhumane mechanisms in the Middle Fork. More than 10 people were injured before they were able to escape in a sorry state. The Western Master's robe was full of holes after being hit by the mechanisms, and his entire person was a little listless. The blanket that the Southern Master was originally wrapped in had been thrown on the ground when they were escaping. Although her entire body was dry now, her appearance was even worse than before. Not only was her wet hair stuck to her body, her face was pale, and the skirt below her knees was torn by the mechanisms. She was leaning against the wall, panting heavily, and her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. Damn it. The Western Master panted heavily and took out a new set of robes from his inner world. Following the original method, he once again shattered his robe, leaving only his inner robe, and put on the new outer robe. He was on the verge of exploding with rage. Where are Master Dongfang and the others? Hearing this, everyone immediately came back to their senses. That's right, where the fuck is Master Dongfang and the others? Now, they were nowhere to be seen outside the fork. However, they didn't meet them when they were on the path in the middle. Logically speaking, they shouldn't be that stupid. We have been defeated by both the left and right paths. Don't tell me that they don't believe in evil and insist on walking the same path as us. A Western region cultivator frowned. Even he did not quite believe the words that came out of his mouth. The Western Master sneered, "Impossible. Master Dongfangyu is an old fox. It's impossible for him to do such a stupid thing. Look around." The Western Master's expression changed slightly. They must have found another way. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone immediately moved to search the vicinity of the 3 forks in the road. No, I don't have it here either. Could it be that these people really entered the left and right forks? Wait, someone suddenly exclaimed, "There's a path here." Chapter 56-65. Where? Everyone's spirits couldn't help but be lifted. Fuck, could it be that Master Dongfang and his group had found the correct path, and then they had secretly pulled their own group in? What? The Western Master fiercely pushed away the person in front of him and quickly rushed over. He saw that the cultivator was standing on the right side of the fork. Look. When he sat down as an example, everyone could clearly see that the air where he sat was fluctuating slightly, and a transparent path appeared behind him. If they didn't walk there and sit down or step into the path, they wouldn't be able to see that there was a path here at all. In particular, the 2 sides of the path were completely white. This transparent path could almost be said to have completely blended into the background around them. If this young man hadn't walked here and sat down to rest and noticed something strange, who knew how much time they would have to spend here to find the correct path? Damn it. The Western Master was so angry that his scalp was about to explode. He originally thought that his group was faster than the others and would definitely be the first to arrive at the middle hall. Who knew that they were the ones who were fooled? How hateful! Master Dongfang and his group must have already passed by. Someone couldn't help but exclaim, "It's over. They must be the first to arrive." There were only so many things. If the people from the eastern region got more than half, then the remaining things would definitely not be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. Thinking of this, everyone's mood became even lower. They could only blame themselves for following the Western Master. They were really unlucky to have come all the way here. The Southern Master's expression wasn't very good at this time. Brother Dongfang is really too mean. He clearly knew that we took the wrong path, but he wasn't willing to greet us. Brother Northern, you've always been on good terms with him. Look, in front of benefits, he doesn't even care about you. Isn't that hateful? The Northern Master smiled awkwardly and politely. You can't say that. He led the people from the eastern region, so naturally, he had to consider all aspects of the eastern region's cultivators. Besides, at that time, we had already followed Brother Dongfang into the middle fork. They only found the right path later, so it's impossible for them to take the wrong path to find us. If it were you, Master of the South, you wouldn't be able to do this. To put it bluntly, they were all competitors. How could they give up on the right path and go down the wrong path for the sake of their enemy? That would be hilarious. The Southern Master didn't even feel embarrassed when he said this. Master Nanfang nodded with a fake smile. Brother Bei Fong is indeed a close friend of Brother Dongfang. Why do the two of you have different paths? The Master of the North sighed and cursed in his heart. He also wanted to go the same way, but he made the wrong decision just now. If he had known earlier, he would have stopped at the fork in the road and simply walked with Brother Dongfang. The Western Master's face darkened. All right, cut the crap. Now, even if he didn't want to, he was still wrong. He had to leave quickly. If you don't leave now, not to mention the meat soup, I don't think even a strand of hair will be left. The Southern Master took out a red veil from her inner world and put it on. She smiled seductively. Let me lead the way. Brother Dongfang, you're always in a hurry to lead me to the wrong place. It's really unbearable. We don't want to waste any more time. Chapter 56-66. The Western Master's face was as black as charcoal, but at this time, he did not continue to fight with the Southern Master. Instead, he silently walked to the side, allowing the Southern Master to lead the people in first. Don't look at how the Southern Master was swaying with every step. His walking speed was actually not slow. After a short while, he led the group to the place where Baby Mo pooped. The Western Master's dog nose was very sensitive. He sniffed hard. There's the scent of their activities here. I can feel it too. The Southern Master's face was slightly happy. Could it be that they are still here and have not left? Everyone look around. If we can find Brother Dongfang and the others to gather together and reorganize into a team, it will be fine. The Southern Master giggled. Unexpectedly, The Western Master was the first to speak out against her. Who will lead the team if we reorganize into a team? Who will be the boss? You or me? Or do you think that Dongfang Yu will let you lead his team? That was simply wishful thinking. Take the Western Master, for example. He would not bow down to anyone. Dongfang Yu was also not easy to get along with. It was even more impossible for him to let them lead his people. When the time came, who would be able to bear the responsibility if they died or got injured? The Southern Master sneered, "I just knew that you, old fart, like to find trouble with me." All right, the two masters should stop arguing. Let's first see if there are any figures of Dongfang Yu and the others nearby. They are back. As they spoke, a few hundred shoujo ran back, but everyone's expression was a little strange. "Why are you so smelly?" The Southern Master pinched her nose and shouted at a tall and sturdy male shoujo who ran to her side. She subconsciously took a step back, and her expression was a little unsightly. This shoujo was called Zhou Ping. He was a married man. He could be considered as her guest. Usually, the two of them hooked up behind his honest wife's back. The Southern Master had always enjoyed the pleasure of seducing her husband. Therefore, most of the guests who entered her room were married men. This could be considered as one of her special fetishes. She admired those women the most. The feeling of being in so much pain that they wished they were dead. The feeling of being unable to get rid of themselves. Hee. This Zhou Ping had always lived a good life and was always able to please her. But at this moment, her body was stinky, which made her feel disgusted. Zhou Ping, on the other hand, had an awkward look on his face. He explained to the Southern Master in a low voice, "I'm sorry, just now Zhou Ping stepped on shit just now, ha." A wanton and arrogant laughter caused Zhou Ping's expression to change. He didn't need to turn around to know that it was his nemesis, Zhao Jia. This Zhao Jia, relying on the fact that he was the Southern Master's new pet, he was somewhat undisciplined and out of control. He did not put him in his eyes all day long. How hateful. Zhao Jia, don't talk nonsense. What nonsense am I spouting? Are you saying that you didn't step on shit? Or did you almost trip over a pile of shit? Ah. The Southern Master immediately took a few steps back and glared at Zhou Ping in disgust. Go clean yourself up first. The smell was simply unbearable. Zhou Ping knew that he was in the wrong, so he quickly retreated, leaving Zhao Jia alone to stand beside the Southern Master with a smile. "Master, there's nothing around here. We've checked everywhere. There's really nothing here. Other than a pile of shit, there's only a small handful of heavenly sunflower seeds left." Chapter 56-67. Damn it. The Master of the South was so angry that his eyes turned red. The Master of the West also stomped his feet and roared angrily. It must be those people's doing. Leaving behind a pile of poop was probably to mock them. If Baby Amon knew what these uncles and aunties were thinking, he would definitely laugh himself to death. These people were really used to turning everything into a conspiracy. Little Furball really didn't have any other thoughts when he left behind that pile of poop. "Chase, we must catch up with them as soon as possible." The Master of the West stomped his feet and roared angrily. "These people have been ahead of us all along the way. They must have gotten a lot of good things. If it really didn't work, they could only resort to robbing." A fierce look flashed across the Master of the West's eyes. "Master of the North, I know that you have always been on good terms with Master of the East, but this time it concerns the resources of our 3 territories. You must not stand on the wrong side." The Master of the South agreed with the Master of the West's words. He nodded and said, "Exactly, Master of the North." The Master of the North couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "You all think too highly of me, but what you all said makes some sense. Since it concerns the welfare of the cultivators of the North, I can't blindly stand on Brother Dongfang's side unconditionally. Sigh, no matter what I do, it's difficult." The cultivators of the North were very grateful when they heard this. "Master, you don't have to be difficult." "Yes, Master, when the time comes, we will do it ourselves. We will settle the matter between us and the brothers of the East. There is no need for Master to be difficult." Yes. Everyone was talking at once. It seemed that they had already made up their minds. When they saw the people of the East later, they would ignore everything and rob them. First, the Master of the West nodded in satisfaction. The people of the Northern Divine region were not completely useless. They were a little hot-blooded after being provoked. That's good, that's good. He was afraid that the Master of the North would turn around and stand on the side of the East. It would be difficult to evaluate the situation of 2 against 2. Now, if it was 3 against 1, Master of the East would definitely lose. At this point, the Master of the West could not help but smile. When he turned to look at the Master of the South, there was a hint of warmth in his eyes. Oh, South, with our 3 territories working together, there's no need to worry about what can't be accomplished. The Southern Master giggled. She covered her mouth and twisted her body. Actually, I only want that treasure. Hearing this, their expressions changed slightly. This was especially true for the Master of the West. His face contorted as if he had just heard a fairy tale. The warmth that filled his heart instantly turned into ice and snow as he stared coldly at the Master of the South. The Master of the North smiled. Everyone came here together because of fate. We're all here for the treasure. Anyway, how should I put it? Let's just rely on our own abilities. The Master of the North tried to smooth things over and harmonize with the current atmosphere. It's fine if we have the same goal. Just treat it as a competition. Don't harm the harmony between us for the sake of competing for the treasure. The Master of the North is right. He. The Master of the West laughed with a hint of malevolence. The Master of the South could not be bothered to look at his hypocrisy. He snorted and turned to look at the Master of the North with a smile. Brother North, then why are you here? The Master of the North shook his head and smiled very warmly. I'm here to accompany the people of the North to gain experience. Chapter 56-68. The most important thing is for everyone to improve their cultivation. Everything else is secondary. Brother South, Brother West, we've been cultivating together in the Holy Region for at least a few decades. There's always some brotherly love. I only hope that everyone can live in harmony and peace. I don't ask for anything else. When the Master of the North said this, the group of hotheads from the Northern region were immediately moved. The Master of the West chuckled. The Master of the South looked at him meaningfully. This Brother North speech was always a little meaningful. He was quite good at it. With just a few words, he could satisfy and mobilize people's hearts. People from the Holy Region were always so easy to satisfy. While they were talking, a few more groups of people who were investigating nearby rushed back. They shook their heads without finding anything. Looks like there should have been a sunflower field here before. They should have all been plucked clean by them. Let's not waste any more time. Hurry up and chase after them. If I didn't chase after them, it would really be too late. They were always half a beat slower than the others. It really made them feel a little unwilling to let others get everything first. The Master of the South and his group hurriedly chased after Arbor and the others. In fact, Arbor and the others were not as hurried as the Master of the West and Master of the South thought. They walked over leisurely. Everyone ran to little Furball's side from time to time and asked with a fawning expression, "Young Master M.O. Jr., do you feel it here? Young Master M.O. Jr., do you feel the aura of a treasure there?" Young Master M.O. Jr.'s little stoic face was tense as he glanced at everyone without batting an eyelid. He really wanted to tell these uncles and aunties that little Furball was not a human-shaped treasure hunting device. Really, don't put all your hopes on little Furball, because you'll be disappointed. However, everyone's confidence in Baby M.O. was greater than his. Along the way, they finally knew that this child, young Master M.O. Jr., was a child who could hit the jackpot, even when pooping. If they didn't follow him, who should they follow? They had to follow him all the way to the end. They had to shamelessly ask for advice from time to time. Young Master M.O. Jr. was a very magical child in their eyes. No wonder the Holy Palace judged him to be the luckiest person. His luck was not for nothing. Quick, quick, do you see it? There seems to be a light in front of us. The big-bellied man exclaimed and quickly reached out to cover his eyes. Everyone else did the same thing as him. They all felt a blinding light coming at them. Arbor glanced over. The light is very strong. That's right, that's right. It felt like something good, and everyone's spirits were lifted. It looks like a lightning array. Arbor roared expressionlessly. Flash. Everyone had followed Madame M.O. all the way and was familiar with her personality. When she shouts, it's best to quickly crawl away. Everyone scrambled in all directions. At the same time, several lightning bolts exploded under their feet. Arbor flew straight up and did a somersault in the air. There's no gravity anymore. I can move. Everyone hurriedly rose into the air. While waving Old Sweat, they looked towards the direction where the light was floating. They saw a cold-faced man with a pair of wings spread out standing in the air, looking at them coldly. It's the guardian of the middle hall. Master Dongfang's eyes narrowed. That man had wings on his back and stood in the air, holding a big bow in his hand. Chapter 56-69. Even the middle hall's guardians have come out. So this means that there should be something good in this place, right? Everyone turned their heads and looked around, but they couldn't see clearly what was going on at the source of the light. Xiaomu narrowed her eyes and sized him up. Are you a puppet that doesn't have a mind of your own? Should be. Yin nodded and tossed her son to Duanyu. She swiped the air, and Raven appeared in her hand. I'll go meet him first. Don't injure his skin. Yin. What did Wifey mean by this, Al? Could it be that Wifey felt that this living corpse was very good-looking, so she couldn't bear to injure his skin? I'll go too. Sovereign Peach Blossom also shot out in a flash. Arbor knitted his brows and expressionlessly instructed the two of them. I want a complete puppet man. Sovereign Peach Blossom's long sword spun in the air, but he didn't dare to stab the winged man's chest. What does Jojo mean? Yin's handsome face darkened as she ruthlessly slapped that winged man's face. I've taken a liking to him. Sovereign Peach Blossom. That shouldn't be the case, right? This person wasn't even as good-looking as him. So what did Jojo see in him? That winged man's figure was very tall and sturdy. His eyes were light-colored, so faint that they were almost transparent. His movements were very swift as he drew his bow and shot an arrow in one smooth motion. Several times, the arrowhead brushed past Yin's hair and drifted by. The little fur ball shrunk in Duanyu's arms and couldn't resist covering her mouth as she exclaimed, Daddy is going to be finished. Duanyu, Yin really gave birth to a good son. Adoptive father, Daddy is going to be finished. Duanyu's mouth twitched. Your father won't be finished. That person's archery speed is so fast. Little fur ball can't even see it clearly. That's a middle stage divine, venerable realm cultivation. You naturally can't see it clearly. Compared to you, his cultivation is much higher. The little fur ball was trying her best to see, and she muttered, Oh, so his trajectory is like this. Oh, archery can be done like this, ah. I see. Duanyu was a bit amused. He looked down at the child and patted his little head. Rest for a while if you feel dizzy. Baby Mo blinked his eyes. I'm not dizzy. I'm even more relaxed. Dongfang Yuzhu was slightly startled. This was probably the first time he had seen young Master Mo and his friend fight. Their speed was astonishingly fast. With his eyesight, it was difficult for him to clearly see their movements. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes slightly. Whoosh! The winged man shot out an arrow that flew past Venerable Peach Blossom and headed straight for Duanyu. Everyone exclaimed and turned their heads to look. In the blink of an eye, Duanyu flicked his sleeve, and the arrowhead in front of him abruptly disintegrated into powder without leaving a trace. At this moment, Master Dongfang's pupils couldn't help but contract slightly. It turned out that the cultivation of this extremely young man was actually on par with young Master Mo in that case. There was almost no point in comparing this battle. It was a completely one-sided crushing. The winged man's body was quickly struck by a fire spirit. At the same time that he lunged forward, Venerable Peach Blossom used a series of spinning wooden vines to restrain him. Before 5 minutes were up, this middle-stage divine Venerable Realm Guardian was subdued by the two of them. Not to mention Master Dongfang. All the Eastern region cultivators present were also stupefied. Chapter 5670. It was hard to believe that young Master Mo's group actually had such a high cultivation level. No wonder those people who went to the bamboo garden to provoke them always left in high spirits and returned with such a killjoy. If the other party had such a high cultivation level, then there really wasn't any power that could shake them. Arbor glanced at the two of them. Yin was currently dragging the end of the wooden vine, pulling that twin-winged person who was wrapped up tightly to her. After the two-winged man was subdued, his head drooped, and he didn't make a sound. It was as if someone abruptly pressed the stop button on his body, and he completely stopped moving. Arbor turned around and roared, "Dunzong, Dunzong?" Dunzong hastily squeezed over from the back of the crowd and raised his clenched fist. "Little Master, Dunzong is here." Arbor glanced at him. "Dunzong, what do you think of this body?" She secretly made up her mind. If Dunzong still didn't fancy such a young and powerful body that was born with a special ability, then she wouldn't care whether he lived or died. Dunzong was sensible as expected, and his eyes lit up the moment he saw the two-winged person. Me. Master, are you giving this body to me? He's just a puppet guardian without any thoughts, so it's perfect for you to use. What do you think?" Dunzong felt like his little master was asking. Do you dare say no? He also secretly felt that this body was young and sturdy and looked all right. At least it looked much better than this vulgar Gung Pengcheng's body. Yes. Dunzong nodded like he was pounding garlic. "Little Master, you're really too good to Dunzong. Dunzong likes it very much. Dunzong is especially happy." Arbor glanced at his fawning appearance, and her lips turned up, inadvertently revealing a faint smile. Dunzong's eyes instantly turned into crescents from his smile. However, he was still in Manor Lord Gung's body, so his smile looked especially vulgar in Yin's eyes. Without thinking, she swatted him away with a punch. Yin walked up and held his wife's small paw. "I'll do the exchange." Arbor nodded. "Then I'll go ahead and take a look. Let Duan Yu and Rotten Peach Blossom help you." Arbor logically took over his son from Duan Yu's hands and left the matter to him. Then, he dragged his son to scavenge at the front. The rest of the people couldn't help but want to laugh. They looked at the three of them sympathetically. "Get busy. Let's go ahead and take a look." She wanted to see if there was anything that Jojo didn't want. She didn't want to waste it. Dongfang Yuzhu and his group also hurriedly followed, leaving the three people to accompany Dunzong and look at each other. The same thought flashed through the minds of Yin and the other two at the same time. "I want to plant them all." Dunju hurriedly ran to the Peach Blossom deity's side and cried out pitifully, "Ji-chun, don't cheat me this time. You must help me change my body back. It's best if you can make me stronger." Duan Yu curled his lips. "You hit it off so well with Rotten Peach Blossoms, so why don't you consider switching to a woman's body?" Tun smiled wretchedly. "I still prefer a man's body." Unable to restrain himself, the Peach Blossom deity punched the top of his head. Yin sputtered with laughter. She walked up and kicked Dunzong. "Hurry up, don't waste time." Perhaps Dongfang Yuzhu and the rest would catch up to them soon. Besides, he really wanted to follow his wife over to take a look. Not knowing what good stuff was ahead, the crowd let out waves of exclamations, each louder than the last. Yin patted Dunzong's back and exerted a bit of force. Chapter 5671. Tun's soul left Gung Pengcheng's body and flew in a straight line towards the wooden vines on the other side under Duan Yu and He Chen's combined palm strikes. At the same time, Arbor held her son's small hand and strolled around the two pillars. There were many cultivation technique manuals placed in the middle hall, and everyone from the eastern region ran over to read them. However, Jojo was completely uninterested in these. She had plenty of cultivation techniques in the Hall of Longevity, so she really didn't need them. Hence, her gaze and her son's gaze were fixed on the hilt of the long sword in front of them. The entire sword was embedded into the steel. Several lines of small words were engraved on the steel. Sword Trial Steel. The Cloud Sky sword was forged by a great swordsmith through a blood trial 3,000 years ago. The sword's edge was so sharp that it could slash through cities and split the heavens. It belonged to the Fated One. Baby Mo's eyes lit up when he saw this sword. "I'm just short of a sword," the little fellow said. "Short a handy sword. I think I should be that Fated One." Arbor didn't even give birth to her son, so where did his confidence come from? She really wanted to ask her son, "How did you know that you're the Fated One for this sword?" "Mother, you don't believe me?" Baby Immo blinked his watery phoenix eyes, his small face glowing with a strange radiance. "Why, I got close. I heard the sword say to me, 'Come quickly, come quickly, come quickly, come quickly, come quickly, pull me out.' Ha ha, I heard it so clearly." Sir Jojo expressionlessly looked down at her son. He spoke as if it was true, and even she couldn't help but want to believe it. "I'm called Mo Shao, and it's called Cloud Sky. It's truly fate that brought us together." Sir Jojo, Feng Chanqing, and the rest who followed him. This child was truly a little demon king who lived in the heavens and the earth. To be honest, they really weren't that confident when they were his age. Baby Mo was itching to try. "I'll pull it out. Wait, I'll go first." At this time, a Western region cultivator rushed out from the crowd and stared at the long sword that had sunk into the steel, revealing only a little of its hilt. A greedy light flashed in his eyes. He flew forward and placed one hand on the hilt of the sword. He shouted, "Rise!" His fingers tightly gripped the hilt of the sword, and his face instantly turned red. The entire sword was still inside the stone tablet, showing no signs of being shaken at all. Boos came from all around, and the Western regioner's face flushed red. Zhang Jing's face was cold. "Shameless! How dare you snatch something from child?" Several Eastern region cultivators at the side nodded in agreement. Along the way, they had received a lot of care from the child's parents. If it weren't for the child's parents, who knew how many times they would have died by now? Not only did they not know how to be grateful, but they also exposed the selfish nature of the people of the Western regions. They did not even let go of the long sword that the child had taken a fancy to. Jojo, on the other hand, was not angry. That was human nature. What was there to be angry about? She and Mo Yin had brought these people along the way. From the beginning, they had never thought of asking for anything in return. In any case, they would gather if they wanted to and disperse if they didn't. They were just a temporary team. But as for the people in her team, she would definitely protect them until the end. The Western region cultivator's face was a little hot. He gripped the hilt of the sword tightly with both hands and shouted, "Rise!" His other hand slammed heavily on the stone tablet. The stone tablet did not move, but his hands seemed to be firmly attached to the hilt of the sword. His hands suddenly became hot. Chapter 5672. His face turned pale with fright, and his entire body trembled as he tried to take a few steps back. However, he was firmly trapped on the spot. His expression was one of unbearable pain as he howled in pain. "Quick, look at his hands," he Weiping couldn't help but exclaim. Everyone looked in the direction he was pointing, only to see that the Western region cultivator's hands had turned completely red. It was as if they were being roasted in a raging fire, completely red and shockingly hot. Everyone couldn't help but shudder, and then they saw an even stranger scene. The blood in that person's hands seemed to be boiling, flowing rapidly through his veins. As the sword hilt sucked, the blood in the Western region cultivator's hands seemed to be sucked into the sword bit by bit. His hand was like the bark of a tree that was rapidly drying up, quickly becoming thinner. His face turned pale with fright. He turned his head in pain and screamed, "Save me, save me." So scary. Several female cultivators covered their faces with their hands, trying their best to suppress the churning feeling in their stomachs. The person in front of them was really disgusting. He was losing blood very quickly, and before long, his entire arm had turned into dried-up wood, completely limp. However, his hands were still holding onto the sword hilt. Various expressions of regret, resentment, disappointment, and fear appeared on his face. Suddenly, a long sword flew over everyone's heads, straight towards that person, and with a whoosh, cut off her arms. "Ah!" The western region cultivator screamed and fell to the ground. Arbor took his son's hand and took a step back. The Western Master and his group quickly walked forward, looking around, and fixed their gaze on the man who was rapidly aging, his face as dry as tree bark. Master, Master, save me, save me. The Western Master looked him up and down, revealing a pitiful expression. You're about to die. Most of the blood in this person's body had been sucked out, and he couldn't live at all. Even if he cut off his arms and let him leave that strange stone tablet, it was a pity that he couldn't live. No, Master, I still don't want to die. The Western Imperial Master had a rather deep impression of this person. Back then, during the top 200 selection competition, this person's cultivation was considered to be above average. Unfortunately, he had followed the wrong team and the wrong person. This was the consequence of betraying the Western regions. Madame Amo, my men died right under your nose. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? The Western Master ignored the struggling cultivator and turned to look at Arbor. The moment he opened his mouth, he questioned him. What kind of explanation do you want? Emo Yin slowly walked over. Duan Yu and the venerable Peach Blossom divinity were walking next to him. At this moment, their gazes were slightly raised as they sized up the Western Master. Dunzone lowered its head and flapped its wings excitedly. For a while it would stop and walk, and for a while it would run and run. It circled around the three of them happily, like an immortal. When the Western Master saw them, there was a hint of fear in his eyes. After all, even he couldn't see through the cultivation of these young people. His strength should not be underestimated. He couldn't afford to offend them. But now, if he didn't take this opportunity to demand some compensation from them, it wouldn't seem right. Hence, he shot a look at the Southern Master beside him. The Southern Master's large red lips curled up, and she couldn't help but snort. Did he think she was stupid? She had to jump out and be ordered around by the Western Master with just a look? Dream on. Chapter 5673. If you want compensation, go ahead and ask for it yourself. Don't order me around like a servant. The Master of the West glared angrily at the Master of the South. This damned woman was always a hindrance at crucial moments. He stared at Arbor with a fake smile and said coldly, logically speaking, Madame Amo shouldn't be fully responsible for this matter, but he died in Madame Mo's team. No matter what, shouldn't you give some compensation? Everyone's eyelids twitched when they heard this. They didn't know what was going on, but when they heard the word compensation, their eyelids twitched. They felt like it was as if someone was holding a knife to their neck. No matter how they put it, it felt wrong. Arbor glanced at the Western Master coldly. You want compensation from me? Haha, this person actually wanted compensation from Master Jojo. What a simple-minded fellow. Then do you know why this person ended up like this? This person didn't listen to advice and went up to the sword trial monument to draw the sword. In the end, he was killed by the backlash of the sword light. Who is to blame? What a joke. You should blame yourself for being greedy instead of blaming him or you. Greed was the origin of tragedy. The Western Master rolled his eyes. How is that possible? He took a few steps forward and looked at the small words on the sword trial monument. The others couldn't help but go forward to observe. Seeing that the entire sword hilt was buried in the monument, everyone couldn't help but roll their eyes. It was really strange. There was such a sword in such a broken monument. Since it was made by a famous sword master 3,000 years ago, it must be a famous sword. Why had they never heard of Yin Xiao before? The little dumpling blinked and asked in a childish voice, Mother, can I go up and pull it out? Master Jojo hesitated slightly and didn't let go of his son's hand. This sword was very strange. Before she figured it out, she didn't want her son to take the risk. Although this little guy kept telling her that there was no danger, as a mother, she was still nervous. Arbor still held his son's hand and warned, Let's take a look first. Baby Imo blinked his eyes and replied unwillingly, Oh. After being quiet for a while, he raised his head again. With an innocent face, he asked his mother, Mother, didn't you hear the sound of the sword? Arbor's eyes moved slightly. He looked down at his son and shook his head. No, I heard it. Xiao Tuanzi counted with her fingers. 3 long ones and 2 short ones. It's urging me to hurry up. The people from the western regions couldn't help but sneer. Him, a small fellow with a small body, wanted to draw his sword? It was more likely that the sword would pull him out. Baby Imo did not care about other people's gazes and used his eyes to signal to his mother. It was as if he was asking her if she could go up and try. Imo Lien slowly walked forward and reached out to grab his wife's small hand. He nodded slightly at her. Let him go. Weren't boys supposed to train? Since this guy was so confident, there was no harm in letting him try. Taking a step back, even if he didn't succeed, he could still strike a blow to this fellow's inflated self-confidence. Master Jojo saw the deeper meaning in her husband's eyes. She couldn't help but glance at Jojo's lotus. Her husband always wanted to strike a blow to her son. It must be because he wanted to take revenge on Baby Mo for tricking him. Let me try. Before Arbor let go, another person flew forward. Chapter 5674. It turned out that it was a West Region cultivator who had rushed forward after receiving the West Master's signal with his eyes. This West Region cultivator was very tall, and his arms were bulging. His hands were also very broad and thick. He looked abnormally imposing when bursting with power. Arbor swept him a glance and mocked. West Master, you see that, right? Your clan's cultivator jumped out for a trial again. Isn't that so? If he dies again this time, don't come looking for us again, Fu San said with a chuckle. He waved his hand and said, Actually, if you don't have the strength, it's best if you don't take on that task. After all, a person only has one life. It's gone if you lose it. The West Region cultivator glowered at him and said coldly, Don't worry. I won't lose. I've never lost in my life. This person had a very confident expression. He took a few steps forward, stretched out his hands, and took a deep breath. Then, he abruptly gripped the sword hilt and pulled. TSK, TSK, TSK. A scorching sensation came from the sword hilt, causing his entire body to stiffen. TSK, TSK. This scorching sensation rose again and seemed to be scuttling toward his arms. That person was alarmed, and he subconsciously wanted to retract his hands and let go. However, his hands were firmly sucked onto the sword hilt, and he simply couldn't let go. Duan Yu's eyes flickered, and he muttered to himself, Cloud Sky? How is that possible? This should be a blood sword, right? When everyone heard his words, it was as if they were struck by lightning, and they all shuddered. Realization dawned on the South Master, and he exclaimed, Right. It's a blood sword. It should be a blood sword. If there was a sword from 3,000 years ago that was passed down through the ages, it would probably be this blood sword that struck terror in people's hearts. However, everyone only treated it as a legend and never made the connection. Moreover, that stone tablet was engraved with the words Cloud Sky. Who would know that this fraudulent sword was actually a blood sword? Look at how happily it sucked blood. This was truly a sword that was as bloodthirsty as its own life. As they spoke, the West Region cultivator in front of them had more than half of his blood sucked away by the blood sword. Right now, he was like a pile of dried bones as he crashed to the ground. The originally tall and imposing figure now looked like a skeleton wrapped in a layer of skin. The skin and flesh were frighteningly thin. Everyone was scared silly and took a few steps back. Terrifying. If that was the case, then this sword was equivalent to a sword from hell that came to claim lives. Whoever took it would be in trouble. Whoever wanted to die would die. The Western Imperial Master and his men finally learned their lesson and retreated a few steps. Baby Mo blinked. What are they doing? Arbor's expression did not change. They are afraid of this sword. What's there to be afraid of? This sword is so beautiful. I like it very much. Beautiful is beautiful, but it can hurt. How is that possible? It's very obedient. Mother, if you don't believe me, I'll show it to you. Mo Bao hopped forward a few steps and ran to the front of the stone tablet. The Master of the South pretended to be frightened and covered his mouth with his hand, reminding him in a shrill voice, Child, that's not a fun toy. It's a blood sword that can take people's lives. You can't pick it up. That's right, kid. The two adults in front lost their lives on the spot. Do you want to follow in their footsteps? Baby Mo turned his head to look at the people who were shouting at him. Don't speak nonsense. How can I be hurt by it? It's very obedient. Chapter 5675. 135. Famous sword for very obedient? What kind of joke was this? You said that this sword was very obedient, but this blood sword had just killed two people in a bloodthirsty manner. Everyone looked at Baby Mo as if they were looking at an idiot. The latter did not mind at all. He did not even look at them as he reached out to grab the hilt of the sword. The Western Master's lips curled into a cold smile. The Master of the South pretended to cover his eyes with his hands and even cried out pitifully. The Eastern Master stared at Baby Mo calmly as a strange light seemed to escape from his eyes. The tragedy that everyone expected did not happen. There was nothing at all. Baby Mo pulled out the sword with a clang sound. Everyone, the Western Master, it must be an illusion. What did this child do? Oh, the Southern Master's mouth was wide open. Her mouth was wide open, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The blood sword was pulled out by this child just like that. He pulled it out. Everyone felt a wave of dizziness in their heads. For some reason, they felt as if the world was spinning. It was too scary. Were all 4 or 5-year-old babies so scary? What kind of strange child was this? Baby Mo pulled out the sword, bringing out a ray of light. There seemed to be a trace of moonlight circulating on the sword. How was it the blood sword that others were talking about? It was the clouds. There was a white mist circulating around the sword, like the clouds in the 9 heavens. It was beautiful, really beautiful. Baby Mo touched the treasured sword and could not bear to let it go. It was really beautiful. 135. Famous sword for very obedient? What kind of joke was this? You said that this sword was very obedient, but this blood sword had just killed 2 people in a bloodthirsty manner. Everyone looked at Baby Mo as if they were looking at an idiot. The latter did not care at all. He did not even look at them as he reached out to grab the hilt of the sword. The Western Master's lips curled into a cold smile. The Master of the South pretended to cover his eyes with his hands and even cried out pitifully. The Eastern Master stared at Baby Mo calmly as a strange light seemed to escape from his eyes. The tragedy that everyone had expected did not happen. In fact, there was nothing at all. Just like that, Baby Mo pulled out the sword with a clang. Everyone, Western Master, it must be an illusion. What did this child do? Oh, the Southern Master's mouth was wide enough to hold up an egg. Her mouth was wide open, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The blood sword was pulled out so easily by this child. It was pulled out. Everyone felt a wave of dizziness in their heads. They felt as if the world was spinning. It was too terrifying. Were all 4 or 5-year-old babies these days so scary? What kind of strange child was this? Mo Bao unsheathed his sword, bringing out a stream of light. There seemed to be a wisp of moonlight flowing on the sword. How could this be the so-called blood sword that others were talking about? It was Yun Shao. Boundless white mist swirled around the blade of the sword. It was as if the clouds had ascended to the 9th heaven. It was also as if it was emitting boundless multicolored light. It was beautiful, truly beautiful. Mo Bao touched the treasured sword and couldn't bear to part with it. It was really beautiful. Baby Mo pulled out the sword, bringing out a stream of light. There seemed to be a wisp of moonlight flowing on the sword. How could this be the blood sword that others were talking about? It was Yun Shao. There was a white mist flowing on the sword, like the clouds in the 9 heavens. It was beautiful, really beautiful. Chapter 5676. Before anyone could react, the long sword that was as thin as glass turned around and flew back into Mo Bao's hand with a whoosh. Baby Mo held it and glanced at the people around him. He grinned. He held the sword, which was as tall as him, and ran to the Western Master. He looked up innocently. "Uncle, do you want to try it too?" The Western Master's expression was extremely ugly. He could not say a word for a long time. This child was here to humiliate him on purpose. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have come all the way here to say those words. If the Western Master shook his head in front of everyone, wouldn't it be a slap to his own face? After all, he was the first to jump out and question it. He even wanted to try the blood sword and take it for himself. Although the child's father and the rest were very powerful, the Western Master thought that as long as he got the sword, his cultivation might increase greatly. But now, seeing an idiot get his neck slit by the blood sword in front of him, how could the Western Master be so stupid to try this demonic blood sword again? He didn't think that he had many lives to play around with. The Western Master pondered over it again and again. In the end, he still replied with a dark face, "There's no need." Baby Mo pursed his small mouth and ran back with his sword in hand. He pounced to his mother's side and tugged at Xiao Mu's arm, saying aggrievedly, "That uncle went back on his word. It was he who said he wanted to test his sword. Now that I'm here, he doesn't want it anymore. Xiao Tuanzi hates him." Arbor held back his laughter and nodded. Mother hates this person too. The mother and son looked at each other. Arbor held his son's hand and whispered to him, "Forget it. Don't lower yourself to the same level as an old man. Look at how old he is and how inexperienced he is. Just treat it as respect and let him have it." Baby Imo nodded his head. Suddenly, a mechanical announcement came from the sky. "The Sacred Palace will close in 46 hours. Now announcing the latest round of luck ranking. First place, Imo Xiao. Second place, He Weiping. Third place, Zhang Jing. Fourth place, Master Dongfang." It wasn't until the 808th place was announced that the Western Master's name was announced by the robotic voice. 779th place, Western Master. Last place, minus 200 points. Everyone was speechless. The Southern Master laughed so hard that he almost fell to the ground. "Hey, old Western man, why are you in last place again?" The Sacred Palace's latest ranking on the Providence Board would exclude those who had died. Thus, out of the 808 people, only 779 people were left. But no matter how they ranked, the Western Master was always the last. The Western Master's face turned completely black. He couldn't help but roar why. Was there something wrong with the Heavenly Tao? From the moment he stepped into the Sacred Palace until now, he hadn't obtained anything at all. Naturally, it was impossible for him to mistakenly consume some strange herbs and have his points deducted. In the previous experiential training, he was unlucky enough to be ranked last. That was because he mistook a poisonous herb for an immortal herb and couldn't wait to consume it, causing his cultivation level to drop bit by bit. But this time, he didn't do that. With the previous experience, he had been extremely careful ever since he entered the Sacred Palace. Volume 137.8, You Don't Respect. Meihei didn't touch anything in the Sacred Palace at all. He was even very careful when he walked, afraid that he would accidentally fall into a trap. If he was poisoned, his points would definitely be deducted. Heavenly Tao, you're unfair. The more the Western Master thought about it, the angrier he became. He couldn't help but point at the sky and curse. Emo Lien turned her head and looked at the Western Master as if she was looking at an idiot. How could there be such a foolish and naive person in this world? Sure enough, as soon as this person finished speaking, the Heavenly Tao took the opportunity to strike down with a bolt of lightning. With a boom, it smashed directly on top of his head. The Western Master immediately changed into a fashionable curly hairstyle. His entire face was indeed blackened by the lightning. The people of the Western region screamed. The people of the Eastern region couldn't help but cover their mouths and snicker. The Western Master was fearless and openly challenged the Heavenly Tao. Let's see if the Heavenly Tao can kill him, bastard. The Heavenly Tao's angry voice came from the sky. How dare you disrespect me like this? Deduct points. The Heavenly Tao immediately made the next decision. Not long after, the cold voice of the broadcast started again. The 779th Western Master. First from the bottom. His attitude is improper, and he is disrespectful to the Heavenly Tao. Now, another 300 points will be deducted. Now, his points are negative 500. The Southern Master really couldn't hold it in and really burst out laughing. Then, she put on a fake apologetic smile and turned to the Western Master who was glaring at her. She waved her hand and said, Sorry, Brother Western. I really couldn't hold it in. Puffed. The laughter around them really couldn't be suppressed, including the people behind the Western Master's own team. There were people who were laughing so hard that their shoulders were shaking. It was really hard to control. They really let their master down. But the master's silly behavior really made people feel that it was extremely funny. He was clearly only negative 200 points before, but now he had reached the sky in one step and was negative 500 points. So what if it was negative 500 points? The master now felt worse than a beggar on the street. That appearance simply made people feel bad just by looking at it. The Western Master clenched his fists and wanted to rush up angrily. Two young Western Region disciples hurriedly ran out from behind and hurriedly grabbed him by the waist and dragged him into the crowd. Master, please don't take things too hard. Do you still want to argue with the Heavenly Tao Elder? The consequences of arguing with the Heavenly Tao is very likely that the Heavenly Tao Elder will directly teleport you out of the Divine Palace and make you the first person to give up. How despicable! The Western Master was so angry that he was almost speechless. He snorted and was dragged into the crowd by the two disciples. His whole body was trembling with anger. He was supported by someone to sit down on a stone block at the side. Master, where there is life, there is hope. Yes, Master, you can't argue with the Heavenly Tao, right? We still have to continue, right? Now that you are last, what are you afraid of? As long as you enter the main palace and get that treasure, you will be the luckiest person, Master. Yes. The Western Master was comforted by the words of the disciples one after another, and his expression recovered slightly. But his face was completely charred black by the Heavenly Tao, and there was not a single trace of white on it. The main palace is just ahead, Master. Let's not get entangled with them. Yes. As long as we make the right bet, everything is possible. Let's go to the main palace, the Western Master shouted and directly stood up. Chapter 56-77. He did not touch anything in the Divine Palace at all. He even walked very carefully, afraid that he would accidentally fall into a trap. If he was poisoned, his points would definitely be deducted. Heavenly Axiom, you are unfair. The more the Western Master thought about it, the angrier he became. He could not help but point at the sky and curse. Yin turned her head and looked at the Western Master as if she was looking at a fool. How could there be such a foolish and naive person in this world? Sure enough, as soon as this person finished speaking, Heavenly Axiom took the opportunity to strike down with a bolt of lightning. With a loud boom, it smashed directly on top of his head. The Western Master immediately changed into a fashionable curly hairstyle. His entire face was indeed struck black by lightning. The people of the Western region cried out in alarm. The people of the Eastern region could not help but cover their mouths and snicker. The Western Master was not afraid of death. He openly challenged Heavenly Axiom. Let's see if Heavenly Axiom can slap him to death, bastard. Heavenly Axiom's angry voice came from the sky. How dare you disrespect an old man like me? Deduct points. Heavenly Axiom made a prompt decision. Not long after, the cold voice of the broadcast sounded again. The 779th Western Master. First from the bottom. His attitude is improper, and he is disrespectful to Heavenly Axiom. Another 300 points will be deducted. Now, his points are negative 500. The Southern Master really could not hold it in. He really burst out laughing. Then, she put on a fake apologetic smile and turned to the Western Master who was glaring at her. She waved her hand and said, Sorry, Brother Western. I really couldn't hold it in. The laughter around them could not be suppressed. Including the people behind the Western Master's own team, there were people who laughed until their shoulders shook. It was really hard to control. They felt so sorry for their master. But their master's silly behavior was hilarious. He was only negative 200 points earlier. Now he had reached the sky in one step and was negative 500 points, so be it. The master felt worse than a beggar on the street. That appearance simply made people feel uncomfortable just by looking at it. The Western master clenched his fists and wanted to rush up angrily. Two young disciples of the Western regions hurriedly ran out from behind him. They hurriedly grabbed him by the waist and dragged him back into the crowd. "Master, please don't take things too hard. Do you still want to go against the Heavenly Tao Elder?" The consequence of insulting the Heavenly Tao was that the Heavenly Tao Elder might directly teleport you out of the Holy Palace, making you the first person to give up. How despicable! The Western Master was so angry that he was almost speechless. With a harumph, he was dragged into the crowd by two disciples. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He was supported by someone to sit down on a stone block at the side. "Master, where there's life, there's hope." "Yes, yes. Master, we can't go against the heavenly axiom. We have to continue, don't we? What's there to be afraid of when you're in last place? As long as you enter the main palace and obtain that treasure, you'll be the luckiest person in the world, Master." Right. The Western Imperial Master was comforted by the words of his disciples, and his expression recovered a little. However, his face had been charred black by the Heavenly Tao and was completely white. "The main palace is just ahead, Master. Let's not get entangled with them." Yes. As long as we make the right bet, everything is possible. "Let's go to the main palace," the Western Master shouted and stood up. Chapter 5678. He didn't believe it. Could it be that the Western Master would be ranked last every year? Impossible. Go to the main hall. He urgently needed to go to the main hall to prove that he wasn't an unlucky person. There were still 24 hours left. There was more than enough time. He would definitely be able to turn this crooked situation around. Arbor looked at the people from the Western region in confusion. What are they doing? They're going to the main hall. Feng Zhangfei glanced over. "Are we going too?" Arbor shook his head. "Let's rest first." That's right. Ever since they entered the Holy Palace, no one had rested. No one had any objections to Arbor's suggestion. They sat in a row and began to nap to recover their sacred power. The Southern Master and the others looked at them as if they were looking at a weirdo. Their faces were full of disbelief. Of course, the Southern Master didn't say anything in the end. It was unknown if Madame Mo and the others were born with overconfidence, but they were actually resting in the Holy Palace. Could she not rest for the rest of her life? There were only a few hours left, and she still wanted to rest. Everyone rested for 6 hours before setting off again. There were only 40 hours left before the Holy Palace closed. But when the announcement was out, everyone couldn't help but feel amused. The ranking was no different from before. In fact, the Western Master's score was now negative 501 points. They really didn't know where the zero came from. Could it be that they haven't entered the main hall in 6 hours? The big-bellied man couldn't help but ask. It's obvious. "Everyone, don't worry," Arbor said calmly. "With their intelligence, they must still be waiting for us." Everyone. That was why Sir Jojo was so calm from the beginning to the end. In any case, whether it was slow or fast, in the end, the Western Master and the others still had to wait for them at the entrance of the main hall. Actually, the Western Master and the others were already regretting it. They had been squatting at the entrance of the main hall foolishly, competing with the rows of mechanical men in front of the main hall. They were all exhausted and were about to cry. If they had to choose again, they would definitely choose to stay in the middle hall and rest with Madame Mo. But now, there was no chance to choose again. Everyone had a bitter look on their faces as they fought with the golems in front of them. These mechanical puppets were neither alive nor dead, neither happy nor sad. Rows after rows of crippled mechanical puppets would appear. It was truly a headache and an annoyance. The Southern Master was also a little exhausted. He held his sword and ran a few steps outside, but he was blocked by a few mechanical golems who surrounded him from the left. She really wanted to scream for help. She wanted to run back to get help and look for Madame Mo. After a series of attacks, the Master of the South panted and shouted, "West, quickly think of something." The Master of the West wanted to reply to the Master of the South, but he was hit in the face by a mechanical puppet. Half of his teeth had almost fallen out, and his mouth was bleeding from the beating. He cried out in pain and swung the sword in his left hand, cutting off half of the golem's head. Xiao Mu and company arrived late, and this was the bizarre scene that greeted them. Sir Jojo spread his hands expressionlessly. See, she knew that with the intelligence of these people, they would never be able to enter the main hall. Chapter 56-79. After all, with their species, they couldn't even see the mechanism on the pillar. Now that he saw them fighting with rows of mechanical men, Arbor couldn't help but want to laugh. As expected, her prophecy came true. What was good about these people? They were all messing around. Couldn't they have stayed in the middle hall to recuperate with them? Look at how miserable and pitiful they were now. The group stood far away and watched for a while as usual. Master Dongfang might have felt that this was a little unethical. He coughed lightly and asked, "Madame Imo, do you think we should go over and help?" Madame Imo shook her hand. "It's not appropriate." Master Dongfang's lips twitched. "Why not? These mechanical men can't be killed or destroyed. Look, they're coming out from the small door at the back. I think we can go around the main door and enter from the side door," Madame Imo said with a serious expression. "Master Dongfang and the others are fighting with the mechanical men. We'd better not disturb their mood." Everyone. Arbor led the group towards the side door. The sharp-eyed Master Dongfang naturally saw them at first glance. He couldn't help but roar in shock. "What are you doing? Come and help." He felt that these people weren't here to help. They pulled the group towards a place where there were no mechanical men. Were they thinking of leaving them here to continue attracting the mechanical men's firepower and then going around the main door? Shameless scoundrel. Master Dongfang cursed. Arbor and the others had already walked to a small side door and reached out to push it. The wooden door opened, and a stone path appeared inside. It was winding and led to an unknown place. Arbor waved his hand and looked interested. "Let's go." "Stop right there." The Western Master was completely dumbfounded. Damn, there were actually such shameless people in the world. Were they really using them as targets and leaving them here to continue attracting the mechanical men? Were they going to let the people from the other 3 regions stay here and continue to be beaten up by the mechanical men? They weren't even going to lift a finger? Shameless, shameless, shameless. The Western Master was so angry that he beat his chest and stomped his feet. The Southern Master was also stunned. He turned to look at the Northern Master. Brother Dongfang actually left with Madame Imo and the rest just like that? It seems that your so-called brotherhood has completely dissipated in the face of difficulties. The Master of the North smiled faintly. He wasn't too angry. Everyone has their own mission. Brother Dongfang's mission is to bring the people of the Eastern Domain out of here in one piece. I don't blame him for his choice. The Southern Master said sarcastically, "You sure have a good temper." As he spoke, the sound of a mechanism dropping to the ground could be heard from the main hall, followed by the sound of gears creaking. The mechanical puppets that had been attacking the people of the 3 regions with all their might suddenly stopped. One by one, their arms drooped slightly by their sides, and their heads drooped down. It was as if someone had pulled a string, and they were completely motionless. The 3 masters were still in a defensive state, facing the golems that had surrounded them in a circle. Soon, they heaved a sigh of relief. The mechanical men really didn't move. "Let's go." They probably reached the main hall. Madame Imo and the rest must have triggered some mechanism. Things might change if they delayed. Chapter 56-80. The Southern Master stretched out his finger and pushed aside the arm of one of the golems. He then squeezed out of their encirclement. The Western Master started to panic as he roared, "Hurry! I'm afraid that they have already reached the main palace and triggered some mechanism. That's why the golems here stopped attacking." This was very, very bad. Along the way, they were always one step behind the others. They were especially passive. Now, if they were one step behind, someone else would beat them to it again. A trace of hostility flashed across the Western Master's eyes. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. The Southern Master also urged the people beside him impatiently. The group of people broke out of the golem's encirclement and hurriedly ran towards the main palace. That speed was really exerting all the strength they had when they were young. They had no choice but to be fast. If they were one step behind, they felt that the treasures in the sky would have already fallen into the enemy's hands. If that was really the case, they were really unwilling to accept it. The Western Master was about to explode. I didn't expect that we would end up empty-handed. When the Western Master said that, the people beside him were also about to explode. They thought to themselves, isn't that so? We worked so hard to come to the Sacred Palace, but in the end, we didn't get anything at all. This was really sullen. It really made them unwilling to accept it. The group of people quickly ran to the main palace, and ran in one after another. The Western Master was the first to shout angrily, "What are you doing?" There were many people gathered in the main palace. Everyone was looking up as if it was a new year. They were happily looking for treasures. These treasures were hanging above everyone's heads. They were in wooden boxes of the same color and material. They all looked about the same size. But everyone understood that when they opened the wooden boxes, there could be pills or herbs inside. It could also be refining materials. It could even be divine weapons, or sacred beasts. The items seemed to be within reach, but it was extremely difficult to peel it out from inside. Furthermore, everyone's choices were not endless. After all, there were less than 38 hours left before the Sacred Palace closed. And every time they used all their strength to take the items out of the wooden boxes, they would have to rest for a while. Just like now, there were many people in the main palace who were resting. It seemed that these people had already taken the first round of treasures. They were indeed one step ahead of them. As expected, the Western Master glared at Xiao Mu, who was standing silently on the side. If it wasn't for this wretched girl leading her men away, would they have been one step behind her? However, at a time like this, the Western Master naturally had no time to argue with Arbor. His eyes quickly moved to the rows of wooden boxes hanging in front of him. He couldn't make up his mind. As for the Master of the South and the Master of the North, they had each chosen a wooden box and were trying their best to open it. Looking at the strength they used when competing with the wooden box, it seemed that they had chosen a good treasure. A hint of jealousy flashed across the Western Master's eyes. He began to doubt himself. Could it be that he was really that unlucky? Sometimes one really had to believe in fate. The Western Master collected his thoughts and casually pointed at a wooden box that was hanging above his head. He concentrated on infusing his saint energy into it. At the same time, Master Dongfang, who was originally meditating and adjusting his breath, suddenly turned his gaze and instantly became extremely sharp. He quickly got up from the ground. Even Lord Xiao Xiao was unable to react in time. She saw Master Dongfang running to the left side of the main hall. Chapter 5681. What are you doing? Feng Zhangqing, who was closer, couldn't help but frown and roar. However, they saw Master Dongfang turn his head and smile strangely at them. Previously, this person had always appeared to be extremely well-mannered. Now that he had suddenly become so strange, it was indeed shocking. Creak! A sudden sound was heard. Master Dongfang raised his hand and pressed a mechanism on the wall. At the same time, everyone heard a loud rumbling sound, accompanied by the sound of sand and stones falling. The doors of the hall are all closed. Several people couldn't help but exclaim, looking back and forth in horror. Arbor glanced at Master Dongfang, his voice exceptionally calm. You want to die with everyone. Madame Amo, I'm sorry. Master Dongfang nodded at her politely and smiled warmly. I have no other choice. Although most of you are innocent, my ability is limited. If I don't sacrifice you, I won't be able to take revenge. Master Dongfang sighed, showing a worried look. Several of the cultivators in the eastern region who had come out of their cultivation state were stunned when they heard Master Dongfang's words. What did Master Dongfang mean? What did he mean by he won't be able to take revenge without sacrificing them? How is he going to take revenge? While speaking, above the main hall, the originally dark carved wooden beams suddenly burst into a red light. Wooden boxes floated quietly in the air. Many people were still immersed in their cultivation state and had not yet come out. There were also many people who were still using their holy power to penetrate the wooden boxes, trying to take the treasures from the boxes. Although they knew that something dangerous had happened outside, they were all in the same state and couldn't get out of it immediately. Although they were secretly anxious in their hearts, there was nothing they could do. Arbor glanced at him coldly. There was no change in his expression, but his cold tone was bone-chilling. "So, you came to me before just to use me? What you told me was nonsense, not a word of it true." "No. What I said about my wife, and about me entering the sacred palace to look for Crimson Dawn, it's all true. You joined our team to use the strength of our entire team to help you reach the main palace as soon as possible," Arbor said coldly. "Sorry, Madame Imo. As I said, this is only a solution within a solution." Dongfang Yuzhu sighed and suddenly raised his hand. A ray of Saint energy instantly hit a box above his head. Bang! The wooden box was smashed into pieces, and a dazzling light flashed before everyone's eyes. A dagger, made of pure silver, jumped out from it. With a whistling sound, it spun in a circle and flew back to Master Dongfang's hand. Pooh! Because of the shock of the power, many practitioners who had been meditating suddenly spat out mouthfuls of blood and opened their eyes in shock. All the wooden boxes on the ceiling seemed to have been awakened by something and began to make clanking sounds at the same time. After a few whooshing sounds, a few boxes suddenly flew towards the crowd. The shoujo were shocked at first, then they hurriedly deployed a defensive barrier. They worked together to throw out a few bursts of energy to hit the wooden box. The wooden box exploded in the air, but nothing fell out. Only a strong gust of air swirled up and suddenly counterattacked. Arbor raised his hand, and dozens of attack talismans teleported in front of the airflow array. With a loud bang, the crowd below all prostrated themselves on the ground, their expressions slightly frozen. Chapter 5682. There were actually traps hidden in these empty wooden boxes. If it weren't for Madame Mo's help, they would have suffered a huge loss on the spot. He didn't know how many wooden boxes there were hanging above his head. If he wasn't careful, he might accidentally explode them all. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. "Master," an East Region cultivator widened his eyes in shock. "Why are you doing this?" At this moment, the originally clean ground was also emitting a strange red light, which actually intersected with the red light on the roof beams. The entire main hall fell into a dead silence. No one made a sound for a long time. They only looked at their feet with vigilance. Gradually, they saw the general appearance of the ground. The red light actually painted a picture on the ground of the main hall. "What's going on?" "It looks like a dragon," someone stammered. Everyone followed the dragon's winding body and saw the red light lighting up the dragon's body inch by inch. As the red light moved up, everyone could clearly see that the dragon's neck was lit up. The dragon's head was lit up. The dragon's lifeless eyes seemed to be about to be lit up by the red light. At this critical moment, a long sword stabbed into the ground with a whoosh and pierced the dragon's eyeball, preventing the red light from lighting it up. Everyone felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their chests just now. At this moment, they slightly adjusted their mentality. When they turned their heads to look, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Baby Imo opened a wooden box, then threw it away and went to get another one. That sword just now, it was obviously the blood sword that the child had found in the middle hall. It was stuck in the ground, right in the middle of the dragon's eyeball. At such a tense moment, this child was actually picking through the pile of wooden boxes as if he was picking trash. He was picking very happily. The wooden boxes that were originally suspended in midair were now stacked on the ground. This strange child sat in the middle of a pile of wooden boxes of different heights. He picked one, threw one, and picked another. His little face was tense, and he seemed a little unhappy. A practitioner from the Eastern Domain asked out of curiosity, "Did you pick anything good?" "No." The child's face was filled with indignation. He casually threw out another wooden box. Most of them are empty. They're all lies. There was no gift in the box. This was extremely unfriendly to the baby. Every year, when Daddy, Mommy's uncles, and aunties gave her birthday presents, there would always be a surprise. None of them were empty. It was simply strange. There were so many empty boxes in the main hall. It looked magnificent, but in fact, the heavenly axiom grandpa was poor, right? Sir Chow Chow expressionlessly scrutinized his son's small expression before turning his head to say to him, Mo Lien, how vexing. And Mo Lien, when the child chooses treasures, he is very similar to you. Wife, didn't you notice? Even if I'm vexed, I'm like you, my wife, not me. Roar Chow Mu cast a glance at her husband, and the latter beamed at her with a radiant smile. Wife, are you tired? Do you want to take a rest at the side? I think you're just a lackey. Everyone wanted to spit at him. What time was it? The entire main hall was locked, and the dragon on the ground looked strange and scary. Chapter 5683. Also, could it be that you didn't hear the rustling sound of sand falling to the ground around you? Disaster is imminent, and you're still circling around your wife, you scoundrel. The Master of the West faintly woke up at this time. Just now, he had been hit by a roar. The chi and blood in his chest had condensed, and he had fainted. Now that he woke up, he found that the scene in front of him was scarlet, as if a ball of blood had suddenly appeared in his eyes. What was going on? He looked back and forth carefully. The entire hall had completely changed. The wooden boxes that had been hanging in the air were all thrown to the ground. Also, why was the ground and the ceiling completely red? It was so glaring and uncomfortable to look at. The Master of the South and the Master of the North had also retreated from the state of searching for objects. They had both suffered some minor injuries and looked around in confusion. What's going on? Why are all the doors of the hall closed? It's Master Dongfang. A Xiozha from the West regions pointed angrily in the direction of Master Dongfang. He used a scheme to close all the doors of the hall. Sha, the sand and stones are coming. Master Dongfang smiled and nodded. Looking at the sand and stones that were spreading from all directions, a trace of strange relaxation and relief appeared in his eyes. It was finally here, putting down the mechanism of the main hall. The main hall would become a forbidden room. At that time, everyone's life and death would no longer be in their own hands. Fate was so strange. Many years ago, his pitiful wife was killed here. Today, he wanted all these people to be buried with his wife, entering the sacred palace year after year just to investigate the mysteries of the mechanism, preparing year after year, until now he could finally implement it. The sand and stones were flowing slowly at the beginning, but it increased in speed almost every second. Everyone seemed to be guarding an isolated island at this time. The surrounding seawater spread up and was about to drown this isolated island. The sand and rocks that were surging towards them were getting closer and closer. Very soon, they would spread all over their desolate island. Baby Mo was still sitting in the middle of the pile of boxes, opening them one by one like opening a gift box. He suddenly opened a wooden box that was very difficult to open and sent his Shun power inside, but couldn't open it for a long time. Thus, Dudu complained, "This box is even more ridiculous. I don't know if it's empty. I can't open it." The more he couldn't open it, the more he wanted to open it. He took out a small hammer from his inner world. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, he picked up the hammer and began to swing it violently. Everyone was speechless. I must be blind. How could there be such a terrifying brat in this world? Even if you open the box with such violence, do you think the things inside will be intact? Unable to chisel it open, Emo Bao controlled the fire spirit and began to roast it. She then switched to using the water spirit to water it. After a round of manipulation, the box did not move at all. He frowned in distress and took out a pot from his inner world, intending to start a fire. Duan Yu couldn't bear to watch any longer, and his mouth twitched involuntarily as he raised his hand to cover his face. It looked exactly like how Jojo opened the box of hidden weapons back then. It had been in the water, roasted in the fire, and even boiled in a pot of oil, Emolien was speechless. She walked up to pick up that brat and tossed the box in his hand to Duan Yu in passing. Although this box looks like the others, it's actually a mechanical box. Chapter 5684. Realization dawned on Baby Mo. It turned out that all his effort was for naught. Back then, your mother picked up a concealed weapon box and operated it like you did. Then, she took out a TNG treasure map from it. As expected of JoJo's biological child, they really had the same train of thought. What were they thinking? They couldn't open the concealed weapon box, so they rolled in a pot of oil. Could it be that rolling in a pot of oil would make it more fragrant? Baby Mo's eyes brightened, and he turned to wave at his mother. Is it true, Mother? Is it true? Daddy said that you picked up a concealed weapon box back then and tossed around in water, fire, and oil just like me. Who was like you? You're exactly the same as your father. Sir Jojo expressionlessly returned a glance at his son. She didn't. Baby Mo puffed up his cheeks. Daddy, Mother said she didn't. His father really wanted to retort. Anything that your mother refuses to admit is 99% likely an embarrassing matter. But when his wife's gaze swept over, his father immediately switched to an icy expression and hollered at his son. How could your mother be as stupid as you? Preposterous. Baby Mo? Daddy's style changed so quickly that he was practically like a retard and hard to communicate with. While they were speaking, Duan Yu had already opened the mechanism box, and a ball of light mist floated out. The Western Master suddenly shouted and pounced at that ball of light mist. However, before he could get close, he was ruthlessly kicked out by a flying leg. Sir Jojo expressionlessly glanced at the restless crowd. Come over if you don't want to die. Everyone. If they found it themselves, Jojo wouldn't even glance at it. But this thing was found by her obedient son and opened by her son's adoptive father, so it should belong to her son. No one could snatch away her son's things. Baby Mo bounced up and scooped up that ball of light mist. What is this? How surprising. She didn't expect that the pauper heavenly law grandpa would actually bury a treasure in the main hall. How could something that could be placed so meticulously inside a mechanism box be an ordinary item? The thousands of boxes around it were probably used as a cover for it. Hee. At this moment, the cold mechanical voice came from Adair again. First place on the Providence roll, Mo Shao. Obtained an ultimate holy artifact, insignificant holy robe. Points, 99,999. Everyone was speechless. At this moment, the Western Master, who had been kicked far away by Jojo, slammed his fist on the ground and shouted angrily, It's my Saint Cloth. Damn it, after so many years of painstaking effort to obtain this thing, it was actually taken away by this little brat? That was the Wuhua Saint Robe. With this Wuhua Saint Robe, why would he be afraid of immortal venerables and hierarch realm cultivators? Even a punch from a paragon might not be able to penetrate the unadorned saint robe. He was unwilling to accept this. The expressions of the Master of the South and the others changed again and again, especially when they saw that mischievous little brat unfold the saint cloth with a shake of his little hand. Their hearts bled. The material of this saint cloth was very rare. It was a thin layer of transparent and unadorned. It could expand or shrink at will. Even if it was placed on a jacket, it would look like it was not on at all. It would quickly merge with the jacket, and the naked eye would not be able to distinguish it at all. The little brat shook his little arms and legs and jumped in his father's arms. His father smacked him in annoyance. Stop fooling around. Chapter 5685. This child was really a troublesome fellow. Didn't he see the wolf-like gazes around him? They couldn't wait to take this chubby child away in one bite. Damn it, damn it. The Western Master continuously pounded the ground, pounding it for nearly a dozen times. Baby Mo turned his head to look, and his eyes couldn't help but widen. Hey, you stop pounding, Uncle. Whoosh. The blood sword that was originally stuck in the ground was actually bounced out by the Western Master's continuous pounding of the ground in anger and unwillingness. Everyone looked at the Western Master with a dumbfounded expression. At the same time, the last bit of red light finally seeped into the giant dragon's slightly opened eyes. Everyone froze in an instant. They watched as the giant dragon's originally dim eyes came alive because of the red light. The pair of dragon eyes actually blinked. A Western region practitioner fell to the ground on his butt and exclaimed, "It's alive! Holy shit, it's really alive!" The huge dragon that was originally embedded in the ground suddenly broke out of the ground. With a huge dragon swinging its tail, it immediately sent more than a dozen cultivators standing behind the Western Master, who had dumbfounded expressions on their faces, flying out. They crashed heavily onto the beam above the main hall. Then, they were half dead and dying. Everyone couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. The giant dragon sent them flying with a single blow, and in the end, so many practitioners were killed. How strong was its strength? This was a super strong, sacred beast, the guardian beast of the main hall. Everyone couldn't help but want to cry. But at this moment, Master Dongfang was laughing maniacally, immensely proud of himself. "Eat them, eat them!" Master Dongfang pointed in the direction of the Western Master and the others, the flames of vengeance seeping out of his eyes. The Western Master couldn't help but explode, rolling and crawling to avoid the giant dragon's claws. He rushed to shout at Master Dongfang, "Old Dongfang, you old fool. It's actually you. It's actually you who planned this. I want all of you to stay here and be buried with my wife." "You're crazy," the Southern Master shouted in fear. "Back then, your wife and the Western Master fought over the Ua Saint robe in the main hall. It was also out of greed. She can't blame anyone for her death. Everyone was just taking what they needed. Furthermore, she was the one who accidentally triggered the trap and died. None of us killed her." Master Dongfang sneered. "That's right. She only has herself to blame. Today, you greedy people will be buried in a place like the Sacred Palace. Isn't that a worthy death?" "Ha ha!" The Master of the South was furious. He wished he could immediately rush to the front of the Master of the East and teach her a lesson. However, the dragon circling in the sky suddenly turned around and roared at them. The Master of the South immediately fell backwards in a crooked manner. "It's over, it's over, it's over. This Master Dongfang Yu is really crazy. He actually wants all of them to stay in the main hall to be buried with his wife. He's simply a madman. That Saint Beast would kill all of them." Baby Immo hugged his father's neck and couldn't help but cry out, "Grand Marshal Uncle, Grand Marshal Uncle, Grand Marshal Uncle, save me, Grand Marshal Uncle." Arbor, who was about to summon Little White Snake and the others, couldn't help but twitch his eyes. What's going on? His son actually developed a habit of summoning Grand Marshal Uncle for no reason. That silly look of calling for help. Why is it so adorable? The giant dragon heard a little childish voice and turned its big head around. With a sweep of its tail, it sent a few people flying, pouncing over aggressively. Chapter 5686. Against the Heavens appeared out of nowhere and slashed down with his sword, creating a trench on the ground. That vigorous power forced the giant dragon to scurry back with just one move. Then, everyone saw the senior's actions. She carried the big sword and chased after the giant dragon. She slashed and fought and shouted as she fought, "I'll beat you to death, you little bastard. How dare you scare my great-grandson? How dare you scare him?" She hit the dragon until there were bumps on its head, and it shrank back in fear. If the dragon could hug its head with its front claws, it would probably be hugging its head and squatting in the corner. Sob, 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 sob. Where did this crazy human come from? Heaven's will. Where was Heaven's will? Why didn't Heaven's will show its face at such a crucial moment? Why didn't Heaven's will come and save it? It was just a baby. Heaven's will, who was hiding in the corner and watching, felt extremely aggrieved. Not only was his temple guardian beast touched, it was also beaten up by against the heavens. "Do you admit defeat?" Everyone saw this senior knock the dragon's head and shouted. After asking 3 times, the dragon's head was about to fall off. Everyone's eyes twitched. Senior, are you blind? The dragon's head was about to fall off. Did you not see it, or did you see it and continue hitting it? Transform. Against the heavens gave the dragon a punch. The dragon obediently kept its claws and teeth and shrunk into the size of a small snake, wriggling in front of Against the Heavens. Against the Heavens carried it back with a look of disdain and shook it in front of baby and Mo. Good grandson, do you want it? No. Just as everyone's faces were filled with envy, they heard the little lousy child's childish voice refuse. Fuck, it's a rejection. This was a sacred beast, and that little rascal actually said no without even blinking. Just how rich and overbearing are you to recklessly waste natural resources? At this moment, everyone was itching to rush up to that senior, licking their faces and saying, yes, 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 yes. But the senior didn't even look at them. If you don't want it, then kill it. Do you like dragon meat? Baby Mo shook his head. Against the Heavens turned to Arbor. Baby Mo, do you want to eat dragon meat? Before Arbor could reply, a young man in black clothes appeared beside Mo Yin and glared at Arbor. Master, master, your wife just wants to eat dragon meat. Mo Yin quickly comforted him. Okay, Jojo didn't say he wanted to eat it. The little dragon that Qin Nitian's hand was so scared that its heart was about to stop. It shook its head and it was crying. Baby Mo glanced at it and felt that it was rather pitiful. You're too cruel. You just killed someone. Arbor of Arbor, why did this dragon like to howl of the night? Seeing that it truly looked a bit miserable with its head full of bumps, Xiao Mu reluctantly opened her mouth. Son, those people aren't dead yet. They can survive after drinking some medicine. The little dragon nodded its head, indicating that it didn't kill them. It wasn't cruel at all. Baby Mo thought for a moment. Okay, I'll ask Senior Granduncle not to eat you, but you have to listen to me in the future. The dragon head nodded. It finally understood that even the heavens of heaven couldn't save it at this time. Other than saving itself, it had no other choice. In order to live, Sob, no matter how humiliating the terms were, it had to grit its teeth and agree. Sob, the heavens of heaven hid at the side and couldn't help but wipe its tears. Arbor and the rest were too shameless. Chapter 56-87. They even wanted to take away the guardian's sacred beast that he placed in the main palace. These people were really heartless. The most abominable one was Qin Nitian. She was an accomplice to the evildoer. Look at what she had done. If she hadn't subdued the guardian's sacred beast, how could these people subdue his sacred beast so easily? Bah, just thinking about it made one's heart ache. This was all because of that crazy Master Dongfang. If he hadn't caused so much trouble, the guardian's sacred beast wouldn't have woken up at all and wouldn't have been taken away by others. These masters of the sacred domain, every one of them that he liked should be replaced. Master Dongfang, who had been hiding behind the pillar, couldn't help but stick out his head in astonishment. Why was it like this? How could it be like this? That seemingly aggressive and incomparably brave sacred beast was actually subdued by someone? Then what should he do next? He was still counting on this sacred beast to kill all these greedy people on the spot and bury them with his wife. It didn't matter. Ha, they couldn't get out anyway. None of these people could escape. The sand and stones on the ground spread extremely quickly. Now, it had already reached everyone's calves. In less than half an hour, the entire main palace would be covered by sand and stones. That's right. At that time, everyone present here would be wrapped in sand and stones in the main palace, even if they could use a defensive barrier to resist for a while. But there was still more than 10 hours before the sacred palace closed. They couldn't stop it at all. Master Dongfang laughed crazily. Good. Everyone will be buried with my wife. Damn old man, go to hell. Master Dongfang screamed. Raising the 2 flying swords in his hands, he pounced angrily towards Master Dongfang. The rest of the people were stunned and couldn't react for a moment. They were extremely distressed. Should they first solve the problem in front of them, or should they help Master Dongfang deal with that perverted Master Dongfang? Master Dongfang and Master Dongfang had already started fighting. They were all experts above the immortal Venerable Realm. When they fought, the wind whistled and the dust billowed. The entire main palace was originally covered with sand and stones. Because of the seal, the air didn't circulate very well. Now that the two of them were fighting, it naturally made the hall even more chaotic. Everyone's eyes were almost unable to see clearly. He could only hear the rustling of the wind, accompanied by a few roars. The Master of the West seemed to have joined the battle as well. Together with the Master of the South, they joined forces to deal with the Master of the East. Occasionally, the sound of the Master of the North sighing could be heard. "Everyone, can you please stop?" Against the sky threw the little reptile to Baby Mo and turned to look at the messy hall. "Little treasure, why are these people so unreliable?" Sir Jojo nodded vigorously. "Uncle, the matters here are almost settled. You should go back and rest." "All right." Against the sky smiled and patted Jojo's head. "I invited your master to play chess, but he fell asleep halfway through. I'll go back and see if she's awake." Arbor. Everyone waved goodbye to the senior and heaved a sigh of relief. Feng Chongqing muttered softly, "Every time senior appears, I always feel flustered and short of breath." Although this senior had never used his aura to intimidate them, they always felt that in front of him they were so small. Chapter 5688. Indeed, little Tai Sui nodded solemnly. Senior is someone that even Heavenly Tao has to avoid. It's not that we are insignificant, but that senior is too powerful. Everyone thought about little Tai Sui's words and recalled Heavenly Tao's cowardly behavior before nodding in unison. That was indeed the case. Arbor coughed and waved away the billowing smoke in front of him. "Why isn't the fight over yet?" 2 against 1, the Western and Southern Masters teamed up to fight Master Dongfang, but they still couldn't determine a victor. They didn't know if Master Dongfang was too powerful or if those 2 masters were too weak. Duan Yu raised his hand and threw out a barrier, blocking the boundless sand and dust on the left side of the main hall. The area where they stood was slightly better. At least, the smell of sand and dust in their nostrils had lessened by a lot. However, the chaos outside the barrier was still a blur. They could only vaguely make out 3 figures flying back and forth in the clouds of sand, going up and down. Occasionally, they would exchange a few punches or palms, and the sounds of collisions would ring out incessantly. Wah! Suddenly, the Western Master spat out a large mouthful of blood. His body swayed several times before he abruptly collapsed to the ground, dispirited. He glared at Master Dongfang in disbelief. On the other side, the Southern Master also stumbled back a few steps, his legs nearly unsteady. The Northern Master quickly went up to support him and looked at Master Dongfang in disapproval. "Brother Dongfang, why do you have to do this? You planned for so many days to avenge your wife, all for today. You completely disregarded our brotherly relationship of so many years." Master Dongfang started spitting blood as soon as he opened his mouth. It was evident that he was severely injured when fighting with those 2 people earlier. "What brotherly relationship? It's all bullshit." Master Dongfang glared hatefully at the Northern Master and pointed at him as he cursed. "Do you think you can escape? I'm telling you, not a single person present today can think of escaping." He still clearly remembered that when the Western Master quarreled with him and his wife back then, the Southern and Northern Masters didn't mind the commotion and just watched from the side from beginning to end. What close friends? It was all bullshit. At the crucial moment, didn't the Master of the North watch his wife get shot to death by the mechanism in the main hall? It was obvious that he could have helped her with just a lift of his hand. He was actually the most sinister and vicious of them all. All these years, in order not to alert the enemy, he had been feigning civility with the Master of the North. In fact, he had long wanted to kill him. "You despicable man." The Southern Master clutched his chest, his face contorted in pain as he said, You poisoned the sand." As he spoke, the Western master spat out another mouthful of blood, and his expression quickly withered. Master Dongfang laughed heartily with a smug look on his face. How about it? You didn't expect that, did you? I want all of you to die here today. Ha! Arbor shook his head. This Master Dongfang, you is really a weirdo. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. If you want to avenge your wife, you have to find the right person. If he inexplicably dragged everyone into the water, then it wouldn't be as simple as taking revenge. At this moment, the sand in front of him was hazy. The Southern Master couldn't see where Arbor and the others were standing at all. He could only shout at the top of his lungs, "Young Master Mo, Madame Mo, you're here? Please hurry up and make a move." The Uncle Master that Madame Mo had summoned just now was someone that even holy beasts had to obediently lie down when they saw him. Don't even think about it. Chapter 5689. A venomous glint shot out of Master Dongfang's eyes, and he abruptly pounced at Master Southern. Would he give them a chance to call for help? Don't joke around. These people all deserve to die. They all deserve to pay with their lives for his beloved wife. Didn't they love to fight and snatch? Didn't they love to snatch treasures by force? Then let them accompany his pitiful beloved wife and stay in this sacred palace forever and ever. Ah ha! Master Dongfang laughed maniacally in irritation, firmly pressing down on Master Southern and Master Western. His abruptly stretched body caused the two to widen their eyes in fright, and they trembled all over. Master Dongfang, this lunatic, actually self-destructed in such a confined space? Oh, why? Boom! The turbulence was so great that it sent all the nearby cultivators flying. The little stoic reflexively bounced onto her husband. Mo Lien even mercilessly tossed his son out, and he hastily reached out to hug her. The bewildered baby Mo was accurately tossed to venerable Peach Blossom by his father. The latter was speechless. As if he had caught a hot potato, he lowered his head and stared at this child. The little fellow instantly felt like his father only thought of his mother in the face of impending disaster and completely ignored the grievance in his eyes. His small mouth gaped, aggrieved, and he had the urge to cry. Venerable Peach Blossom was both amused and exasperated. He hugged this squishy little ball and lightly patted him. Then, he turned around and roared at Emolien. "Are you crazy?" Sir Jojo punched him. "Why did you throw your son?" Emolien was a bit embarrassed. Wasn't this a conditioned reflex? When he saw his wife bouncing over, he reached out to hug his wife. Everything else could be thrown away. The little dumpling sniffled and pitifully hid in rotten Peach Blossom's embrace, using the back of his head to face his father. Sir Jojo was also a bit embarrassed. This was a bad habit that Emolien had taught her since she was a child. Whenever there was an earth-shattering noise, she would jump into Emolien's arms for no reason. Sovereign Peach Blossom was annoyed at the sight of the two of them. He hugged baby Emo and patted him, comforting him softly. "Little dumpling, don't be angry. Let's not play with your daddy and mommy anymore." After the turbulence passed, Arbor coughed a few times and waved the dust in front of his eyes. The sand and stones piled up from all directions had already buried them up to their knees. Everyone floated into the air one after another, waving the sand in front of them as they looked over. Many saint-level cultivators were flung around, on the verge of death. Some of them had already fainted, probably due to the shock waves of the explosion. The drifting sand quickly covered their bodies with a thin layer. If this continued, he would definitely be buried alive. "Save them," Jojo ordered. Feng Zhangqing and the others moved together. In groups of 2 or 3, they carried out the people buried in the sand and threw them to one side. Arbor stepped forward and took out a bottle of medicinal liquid. He dripped 1 or 2 drops into each person's nose. Soon, the people of the saint level woke up and thanked him repeatedly. This trial in the sacred palace was really too difficult. Not only did many people not gain anything, but they also almost lost their lives. Master Dongfang self-destructed and dragged Master South and Master West down with him. The three corpses were now completely buried under the sand. Although Master Bei Bei was closer, at least he was not pressed down by Master Dongfang. He managed to keep his life, but his left hand was crippled. Chapter 5690. At this moment, he couldn't help but cover his crippled left arm and laugh bitterly. Madame Emo, thank you for your help. Arbor glanced at the Master of the North and didn't say anything. After rescuing the group of people from the sanctuary, Emo Yin said, "It seems like this place will soon be submerged by sand and stones. Let's get the heavenly Tao to open the exit of the palace for us as soon as possible. It's not difficult to get out." Suddenly, a voice floated in the air. Everyone looked up and saw that it was indeed the heavenly Tao. He was floating above the main hall and looking at them with a pitiful gaze. How pitiful! The heavenly Tao sighed. Look at you all in such a sorry state. Even I can't bear to see you like this. Then will you give us some compensation? Zhang Jing's sudden voice made the heavenly Tao choke. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. No, the heavenly Tao immediately denied it in a huff. Ba ba ba, a group of greedy humans. Even the guardian beast of this old man was abducted along the way, and they still wanted compensation? Compensation for your entire family. Do you still want to go out? The heavenly Tao asked in annoyance. Everyone nodded. Resources were just worldly possessions. Now that even their little lives were about to be played, they naturally had to withdraw if they could. If they couldn't do it this year, there was still next year. At most, they could enter the sacred palace again next year to train. They couldn't open Helm mode every year, right? I've realized that after so many years, there isn't a single decent master in the sacred realm. Take advantage of the fact that all of you elite disciples are here. Let's all discuss and elect a lord of the sacred region to discuss with me in detail. Master of the sanctuary? The Shouja from the four regions looked at each other. The three masters of the eastern, western, and southern regions were all dead anyway. Electing a new master was nothing. However, the master of the north was living well. This was a bit awkward. The heavenly Tao's words made it clear that even the master of the north looked down on him. The big-bellied man stood up and cupped his hands. Does the heavenly Tao mean to elect a master of the sanctuary to govern the north, south, west, east, and west regions? Is it that hard to understand what I'm saying? Tian Dao glared at them impatiently. Have you thought it through? Everyone had a flash of inspiration and hurriedly nodded. They cupped their hands and said in unison, "We are willing to recommend Madame Emo as the master of the holy region." Jojo. What the hell? You guys are willing, but Sir Jojo isn't. Have you asked Sir Jojo if he's willing? Except for the people from a northern territory who were a little stunned, the people from the other three territories all bowed in the direction of Arbor. Greetings, Master. The Master of the North was very embarrassed. He felt a sense of defeat, as if he had been kicked out of his position. The Heavenly Tao Elder looked at them with gratification. That's good. Then I'll send you out. Heavenly Tao, what are you doing? The Heavenly Tao secretly thought to himself, I'll find something for you, little bastard, to do, so that you won't be idle all the time and always want to summon your master and martial uncle and find trouble with me. This little bastard was busy, so he had to stop now. The people from the Northern Territory looked at the Master of the North and then at Arbor. They hurriedly went forward and bowed. Greetings, Master. The Heavenly Tao had already said that he would recommend this person as the Master of the Sanctuary. Who would dare to say no? The Master of the North was instantly embarrassed and didn't know what to do. Chapter 5691. Should he continue to feign ignorance and pretend that he didn't hear the people of the northern region call Madame Emo Master, or should he simply step forward to greet her and respectfully address her as Master? Just as the northern master was in a dilemma, the large group was transported to the sacred palace's entrance. When the northern master looked up, he discovered that he had been released from the main hall by heavenly law along with a group of people. At the same time that he breathed a sigh of relief, he couldn't help but feel a bit melancholy. The situation was hopeless. That Madame Mo could be considered as heavenly law's default choice for the master of the holy domain, right? Why did he have to compete with her? Looking down at his crippled left hand, the master of the north sighed and simply walked to the back of the crowd without saying a word. After being led out of the sacred palace's entrance by Mo Yin, Arbor turned back to glance at her son, who was huffing and puffing with rage. Guilt welled up spontaneously. Her husband actually lost their son when danger struck. The little stoic tried her best to glare at her husband, but the latter blinked and innocently looked back at his wife. At that time, it was really just a conditioned reflex. Mo Yin felt that it was merely because he was already used to hugging his wife. The little dumpling was very angry and didn't even pay attention to his parents. He kept facing the couple with the back of his head. Now that he saw heavenly law hanging in the sacred palace with a wooden face, the little fellow waved his small hand in heavenly law's direction. "Goodbye, old grandpa. I'll come again next year." Heavenly law looked at him expressionlessly. He directly raised his sleeve and slammed the palace's door shut with a bang. Everyone silently twitched their mouths. Baby Mo looked up at Divine Peach Blossom in confusion. "Uncle Peach Blossom, what's wrong with old grandpa?" Divine Peach Blossom suppressed his belly full of laughter and glanced down at the child. "Maybe he's a bit angry when he sees you." Everyone, Baby Mo harumphed and thought, "Old grandpa isn't happy when he sees me, but I'm even more unhappy when I see him." "Master." An Eastern region cultivator cupped his hands at Arbor. "Then let's return first." Arbor nodded slightly, not feeling anything about this title of master. She felt that this was a trap that heavenly law dug for her. Why did it suddenly throw her the title of master? Master! At this moment, the practitioners from the western and southern regions also gathered around. "Master, are you going back with the people from the eastern region?" Her bamboo garden was in the eastern region. Where else could she go if she didn't go home? "Master, since Elder Heavenly Tao's intention is to unite the entire sanctuary, then Master should consider whether it's time for you to settle down in our western and southern regions." Right. Jojo looked at them expressionlessly. "We'll talk about this later. What's the difference between your western and southern regions and the eastern regions? Weren't they all covered in a vast expanse of white fog?" Speaking of the fog, Xiao Mu pondered in her mind. How about she find a day to see if the realm of misfortune could absorb all the white fog in the eastern domain clean? If the holy land and holy water could nurture a piece of land, then perhaps in a few years, this wretched piece of land would be able to flourish. At that time, those pitiful adults who risked their lives to escape prison to send their children out of the sanctuary might be able to live a good life. With this thought in mind, Arbor glanced at the people from the eastern region. "Will you all listen to me in the future?" Chapter 5692. Of course, the eastern region's cultivators hastily cupped their hands. What a joke! Since Heavenly Tao had already spoken, if they still blindly disobeyed, wouldn't they be seeking trouble for themselves? Arbor nodded reluctantly with a taut face. "Then in the future, don't make excuses when I ask you to do something." Yes. Sir Jojo turned to look at the other three regions. "I'll return to the eastern region first. You guys go back and wait for news." Wait for what news? Everyone was confused. During this trip to the Holy Palace, 3 of the 4 masters were destroyed, and the last one was also crippled and stripped of his master position by Heavenly Tao. Arbor didn't gain much from this trip. The biggest beneficiary was the number 1 person on the Providence roll, our little classmate, Mo Xiao. This guy struck it rich without a sound. He found a bloody sword in the middle hall and also obtained the inconspicuous saint garment in the main hall. The funniest thing was that he had already taken a lot of things before he found the inconspicuous saint garment while sitting among a pile of boxes and opening gift boxes. Baby Mo stored all of these into his inner world. He was originally quite happy, but Daddy left him behind, so Baby felt a bit sullen. Arbor shuffled to his son's side and carried him over, coaxing softly, "Little dumpling, let's beat Daddy together later and vent your anger for you." "Mommy, didn't you say before that we can't beat Daddy?" Arbor thought about it and nodded. That's indeed the case. But Daddy was in the wrong this time. Beating him is to make him remember. Baby Emo shook his small head. "Forget it. Daddy doesn't grow wise and won't remember." Arbor. The little stoic looked back at her husband strangely. Her son understood his father quite well. "Unfortunately, I don't have a wife." Little Dumpling looked up at the sky sadly. "Emollient, 2 against 1, I have no chance of winning." Venerable Peach Blossom chortled and pinched the little fellow's chubby cheeks. "I'll find you one when we go back." "Forget it." Xiao Tuanzi looked up at the sky with a hopeless expression. A wife is something that can only be found by chance. Some people were born with a wife, while others never had a wife in their entire lives. Everything is fate. I'll just follow it. Everyone was speechless. Arbor. What was going on? Why did the scene suddenly go awry? On the second day after everyone returned to the Holy Realm, Arbor ordered people to post a notice and found more than a dozen free laborers. Among them were the big-bellied men, He Weiping and Zhang Jing, who had volunteered. Reclaim wasteland? Everyone asked in confusion. But how do we reclaim wasteland in this vast white fog? Let me absorb the white fog and take a look at the terrain first. Jojo took out the heart of misfortune and tossed it into the air. The white fog from all directions quickly gathered towards this place. Indeed, it covered the sky and the earth as it surged and rolled. Arbor blinked and turned back to say to Zhang Jing and the others, "All right, let it absorb for a few days. We'll come back and take a look then." If the Holy Realm could develop and become rich together, these Holy Realm cultivators wouldn't have to live so bitterly, Arbor thought. These people had lived such horrible lives for so many years. He seriously couldn't bear to see it. Each of the Transcendent Realm cultivators lived worse than the ordinary civilians of the lower star domain. They risked their lives for food every day. It was too miserable. Look at the burning eyes. He really didn't want to see so many idiots. Chapter 5693. 3 days later, the mist in the eastern region was completely absorbed. Such a big move shocked the people in the other 3 regions. Everyone rushed to the eastern region like a swarm of bees, wanting to see what was going on. What they saw was incredible. The mist in the eastern region was completely swept away. Suddenly hearing a shy scream, Arbor looked up and saw a female cultivator wearing a piece of ragged cloth. She hurriedly covered her body, turned around, and ran away. He Weiping smiled awkwardly at Arbor. In the past, the mist was boundless, and the visibility was very low. People couldn't see each other clearly from half a meter away. Now that the mist is suddenly lifted, everyone is a little embarrassed. What embarrassment? It was obviously that female cultivator who found that her slovenly appearance was seen by everyone. So she hurriedly ran away to wash up. Look at these idiots. What kind of life did they live day by day? Because people couldn't see each other's faces clearly, it was possible that they didn't wipe their faces for a few years. He Weiping's hair was also a little messy. At this time, he was scratching his head in embarrassment. We will go back to wash up. We'll come back tomorrow to find Master. He Weiping's face turned red from the little guy's disdainful gaze. He hurriedly took Zhang Jing and the others back to the newly built bamboo house to wash up. A small female cultivator, wrapped in a dirty blanket, squeezed through the crowd and came to Arbor's side. Her voice seemed to crawl out of hell as she said faintly, "Master, what should we do?" Now that the fog had been parted, people could see each other clearly. For people like them who hadn't built a bamboo house yet, if they slept on the streets, wouldn't they be seen clearly by others? "I don't care what you do. Go back and build your own house." Master Jojo roared. Everyone hurriedly covered their heads and ran away. In your dreams, you want Master Jojo to pay for your bamboo house? Baba. Being poor is not your excuse. Master Jojo is not a child of wealth. Humph. Those who had houses were happy. Those who didn't were miserable. Many female cultivators could only go to houses with buildings and pay some rent to stay there for a period of time. Now that the streets were empty, there was nothing to cover them. It would be embarrassing for them to lie down on the streets. Look at these people. Arbor pointed at the crowd that had scattered like birds and beasts. He was furious. When they ascended from the middle 6 prefectures, I guess each and every one of them was considered a person. Emolien and the others looked at Arbor, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What did he mean by considered a person? He was definitely a famous figure. Look at these fellows. They don't think about improving themselves after arriving at the Saint region. They just eat and wait for death every day. They're living like salted fish. Sir Jojo said resentfully. If their juniors in a lower star field of the middle 6 prefectures knew that their ancestors were all like this, what would they think? The corner of Venerable Peach Blossom's mouth twitched. Thinking back to the past, he seemed to have been just like this, waiting for death to come. Fortunately, Xiao Xiao had summoned him back, making his life a little more colorful. Salted fish have no future. The little stoic waved her small hand and forcefully spat out this sentence. Everyone nodded repeatedly, expressing their agreement. Chongqing, go and issue a public announcement for me. Gather everyone in the Eastern Domain here tomorrow at 7 a.m. I want to give them special training. Everyone. Chapter 5694. The practitioners of the Eastern region started to run out of luck. Their master, Sob, suddenly summoned them to the square in front of the bamboo house every day, as if he was on steroids. It could be considered a square. In fact, it was just an open space for them to train. Every day, he waved a small vine whip in front of them. Their master was extremely displeased with them. Sometimes, he used an image array to record their training scenes. He even threatened to bring it to Tsang Prefecture and Ming Prefecture in the future for their juniors to admire. They wanted to admire how their ancestors who had ascended to the sanctuary started their salted lives. Sob, their master, was really wicked to the extreme. How could he be so careless? Their master's actions were simply heartbreaking for the practitioners of the Eastern region. After 5 consecutive days of training, an Eastern region practitioner began to slander. Master, you train our practitioners of the Eastern region every day. You said that in the future, you want us to cultivate wastelands together. Our physical fitness must be trained well first. But we feel that since you are the master of the entire sanctuary, then no matter east, west, north, south, east, we should treat everyone equally, right? Yes. What Brother Zhang said is very reasonable. He Weiping twitched the corner of his mouth and said seriously, I also feel that what Brother Zhang said is reasonable. Master, since our future goal is to be prosperous together, then first, we have to unify the pace of training, don't you think so? Everyone nodded. Pairs of shining dog eyes looked at Lord Xiao. They cupped their hands together and said, Master, please give the order to transfer the people from the other 3 regions to exercise together. It was better to be happy together than to be happy alone. There was no reason to let the brothers and sisters of the Eastern region live such a miserable life. Arbor thought so too. He waved his hand and issued another order. Gather the practitioners of the other 3 regions at the square in front of the bamboo house tomorrow morning. The miserable life of the brothers of the sanctuary began. The young master sent people to supervise their training every day. When he was free, he led the group to cultivate wastelands. However, what made everyone the happiest was that in front of the bamboo house, the first piece of wastelands that was cultivated gradually showed results under the cultivation of the sacred land and sacred water. A month later, almost every household in the Eastern region had built a bamboo house and lived a peaceful and happy life. Baby Mo had nothing to do every day, so he was sent to school by his father. He had nothing to live for, so he spent his days with a group of young children. On this day, the children packed up their things and walked home after school. Suddenly, Someone tugged at him. Baby Emote turned around to take a look, then suddenly turned around. She raised her small fist and punched the man in the face. Ouch! That person fell to the ground, covered his nose, and cried out in pain. You little brat, why did you hit people? Guangguang Darren was carrying Baby Mo's little school bag and was rushing over from behind. When he saw the person lying on the ground, his little face immediately darkened. Mother said that those who like to lie on the ground, 8 or 9 out of 10, are trying to scam others. That's right. Baby Mo looked at him warily. Old Grandpa, why are you hiding behind me? Are you trying to trick me? The old man stood up with a hunched back and rolled his eyes in annoyance. Little Gongzi, don't be ungrateful. I have a secret talisman book here. It is never given to outsiders. I guarantee that you will learn it after reading it, and you will be invincible. Baby Mo couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 5695. Who would have thought that someone would actually look for him to sell talisman manuals? Could this old grandpa be a retard? Baby Mo waved his hand at the old man. Old grandpa, squat down. The old man took out an extremely old and worn book from his bag and pointed at the book cover with 2 fingers. Little Gongzi, take a look. This talisman manual of mine is a rare treasure. Are you new here? Lord Guangguang asked curiously. Did you just ascend to our sacred saint region today? The old man rolled his eyes. Child, do you have any special meaning for asking this question? Of course there was a special meaning, but Lord Guangguang was too lazy to tell him. In the sacred saint region, there was no one who did not know of Master Yu's precious son. What do you want to exchange this talisman manual for? The old man's eyes lit up. I see the treasured sword at little Gongzi's waist. Before the old man's hand could touch the cloud mist sword, it was slapped down by Lord Guangguang. So it was because of his Baby Mo's blood sword. Ever since Baby Mo took this blood sword out of the sacred palace, it had been hanging on his waist. This kind of sacred weapon could change in size, but now it had shrunk to the size of a small bamboo knife and was hanging on Baby Mo's waist. This sword seemed to have a trace of moonlight circulating around it, shining brightly and dazzling people from far away. No wonder this old man had evil thoughts about Little Furball when he just ascended to the sacred saint region. This old man was originally an elder of the Tsang region's talisman aristocratic family, Qi clan. I met you when I met you because we were fated to meet. Why don't you give a small knife hanging on little Gongzi's waist to this old man? This old man will give this world's #1 talisman manual to little Gongzi. Lord Guangguang curled his lips behind the old man. Could it be that all the talisman aristocratic families in Tsang region were as shameless as this person in front of him, casually taking out a tattered book to exchange for Little Furball's treasured sword from the sacred palace? Apui, they weren't children anymore. How could they fall for such a trick and be deceived like this? Xiao Tuanzi glanced at the tattered book in the old man's hand and waved at him with a smile. Grandpa, squat down a little more. You're too tall, so we can't talk on equal footing. Okay, I'll listen to you. This elder from the Azure Prefecture's talisman clan grinned as he squatted down, and he couldn't help but praise in his heart as he looked at the handsome and exquisite little boy before him. Sure enough, the sacred region had produced so many monstrous young geniuses. The old man was startled. He suddenly realized that someone had pasted a pure gold talisman on his forehead. It was made of paper and was even floating in front of his forehead. He squatted there, his entire body frozen. He found that he couldn't move at all, let alone stand up. He squatted there with his front foot half a step forward and his back foot slightly bent. His old face revealed an incomparably shocked expression. Liar Grandpa, just stay here for the night. Xiao Tuanzi snorted as he took small steps forward, then bounced back. The little fellow pounced on the old man's back and searched him from head to toe, inside and out. He then took out several dozen talismans from his pocket. He looked at them one by one and shook his head repeatedly. Big liar. What Tsang region's talisman aristocratic family? Your drawing can't even compare to mine when I was 2 years old. I'm ignoring you, big liar. That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.